Distinguished participants, first of all, we would like to thank you for taking your precious time today and participating in the third and final event organized by the Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources, titled Forum on Energy Sector Program Phase 2 Energy Efficiency Projects. As we stated at the beginning of the battery storage workshop on April 21st and the workshop on data management and digitalization on April 28th, although we cannot physically get together with you due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we continue to maintain our solidarity and dialogue in a digital environment. We hope to be reunited as soon as possible. For those who couldn't attend, you can access the recordings of our workshops organized on April 21st and 28th through this digital platform until May 29th, 2021. Dear participants, as we all know, in the process of accession to the European Union, various projects are implemented across many different sectors in preparation for membership. These projects are co-financed by Turkey and the EU through the Instrument for Pre-Accession Assistance, IPA, within the scope of the Turkey-EU financial cooperation. As the lead institution in the energy sector, the Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources is responsible for the programming, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of EU-funded projects. In this framework, the Energy Sector Phase 2 program has been carried out within the scope of the 2013 program, co-financed by the EU and Turkey, and in cooperation with the World Bank. The program will be completed on May 29th, 2021, whereas the Phase 1 program was completed back in 2017. Within the scope of the Phase 2 program, many projects have been implemented in the fields of energy efficiency, energy projections, and the development of energy markets. As we are reaching the end of the Phase 2 program, we are hosting events held on 3 different days in 3 separate weeks within the scope of this digital activity to present the outputs of the projects in the fields of energy efficiency, battery storage, and data management and digitalization in the energy sector, and to share information on global developments across the fields explored in the projects. Today, we are pleased to host you, our distinguished participants, at our third and final event, Forum on Energy Sector Program Phase 2 Energy Efficiency Projects. Energy efficiency is the most significant source of energy. Efficient use of energy ensures a sustainable, prosperous, and development-oriented future. Today, we will hear presentations from our esteemed speakers on project outputs about the energy efficiency projects in the energy generation and transmission carried out within the scope of the Phase 2 program, as well as the energy efficiency awareness-raising campaign with the motto of Act Smart, Live Efficiently. We will be hosting you until 1:30 this afternoon. I wish you all a very productive and pleasant workshop. We will begin the first session with Mr. Nurettin Cemil Gökpınar, Head of the Foreign Investment Coordination Department and the Project Implementation Unit from the Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources, and his presentation on the energy efficiency projects under the EU Ipa programs. I would now like to leave the floor to Mr. Gökpınar.
Hello. First of all, I would like to say good morning to all the participants. Welcome. And I would like to celebrate your Eid in advance. So at the point we have reached, we had 2 events in the previous weeks as well. And we heard inspiring and great presentations at these events as well. So I would like to thank all the speakers at those events as well as the ones at this event. And I hope it will be a very efficient forum for all the participants. Now, as you know, the purpose of today's forum is to focus on the energy sector Phase 2 program, which is a part of the IPA. And we want to focus on the outputs of the projects realized in the area of energy efficiency. And we want to provide you information about some global trends which are quite groundbreaking. And we will be hearing presentations from various speakers, from various contractors in these projects. But before moving on to these presentations, I wanted to talk about the purposes and outputs of these programs, which we carry out jointly with the EU and the World Bank. I want to talk about the scope of these programs. So the detailed presentations you will hear subsequently will be based on a better perspective. I'll share my screen. Now, first of all, I would like to share my agenda with you. First of all, I am going to talk about the energy efficiency policies and goals of our ministry, and then I would like to talk about the annual sectoral programs we have. Especially, I will be focusing on the collaboration we have with the World Bank, and then I will talk about the Ipa 3 Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources strategic framework. And for this period, we have already identified our strategic priorities, and I will be providing you with a framework related to that as well. Now, first of all, our ministry provides support for energy efficiencies. Well, first of all, we have the Efficiency Increasing Project, referred to as VUP, and we focus on commercial buildings, energy sector, service sector, facilities, and agricultural facilities are also planned to be a part of this in the future. We have provided 42.2 million TL of support payments until now, and there has been an investment of 172 million Turkish liras in 325 projects, and this creates 129 million liras of savings. And we also have a voluntary agreement program for decreasing the energy intensity of industrial facilities. And there has been 5.2 million liras of investments in 7 industrial enterprises with 700,000 Turkish liras of support payment, and the saving is at 4.2 million Turkish liras. And for the manufacturing industry, they can also benefit from the 5th region incentives. Now, cogeneration. With the unlicensed power generation regulation, the institutions or buildings who want to generate power to fulfill their own needs, they have an exemption to get a license and establish a company. And if there is a saving above 10%, then we also provide them with a cogeneration facility efficiency document. We have provided these documents to 187 parties until now, and all of these parties is equal to an installed power of 560 megawatts. And when we look at the primary energy source savings, it is 2.7 terawatts per hour. And currently, our installed cogeneration capacity is almost 5 gigawatts. And of course, hotels, shopping malls, hospitals. So in the service sector, there is a potential of 3.3 gigawatts. And when we look at our national energy efficiency action plan, it was a plan for 2017 to 2023, and we had our phase 2 sectoral program with EBRD, and this action plan was part of that. There are 55 actions. There are a lot of different institutions in charge of these actions, and 26 actions are the responsibility of our ministry. And we want to have a decrease of greenhouse gas emissions equal to with a carbon dioxide equivalent. And we have had an investment of 635 million US dollars, and there has been 158 million US dollars of savings. This is just for 2020. And then throughout 2017 to 2020, there was an investment of 4.8 billion US dollars. And there was an energy saving equivalent to 1.12 billion US dollars and equal to 3.19 million TEP of energy efficiency. And of course, we focused on our deficiencies and focused on the areas we need to improve. Now, when we look at public buildings, as you know, there has been an announcement by the presidency to have 15% savings in these buildings, and there are more than 2,000 buildings and campuses, and the reference consumption information is 1.22 million TEP. And as of the end of 2023, we are expecting a total of 870 million Turkish liras of savings. At the end of 2019, the actual was 61 million Turkish liras, and we have a $200 million loan program, which is mobilized by the Ministry of Environment and Urbanization, and we are supporting the technical side of this project. This is coming from the World Bank Clean Technology Fund, and also we have we have another model, which we call energy performance contracts in the public sector. And there was, again, a decision by the presidency for this. And the first implementation of this model was done in Bursa. Now, when we look at the energy sector phase 1 program, this was completed in September 2017. It was conducted jointly with the World Bank. It had a budget of almost 12 million euros. And as part of this first program, we focused mostly on the harmonization of the legislation between EU and Turkey. We focused on the national energy markets, renewable energy developments, and there were many trainings, forums, field visits, press meetings, but most importantly, there were actions taken to encourage the creation of a market in renewable energy, especially for small-scale projects. There were 155 projects, SME and local government projects, that were part of this program. Bank reports were created for their access to loans, and there were 69 SMEs in this scope who had projects prepared. And when the financial access limitations are eliminated, there was investments mobilized for these projects, and there is a reduction of emissions, which is equal to 93,000 carbon equivalent tons. And we also have a hydroelectric power plant project on the distribution or transmission line, and this was conducted with the hydroelectrical turbine on the pressure breaker. And we also are talking about some self-consumption projects, and these were all financed and brought to life. I will talk about them in detail. On the other hand, in the area of energy efficiency, industrial SMEs, service sector buildings, and local governments had 260 projects developed for them. Surveys were carried out and financial consultancy was provided. There were around 850 sub-projects under these projects, and they're equal to around $300 million. And we are talking about $87 million of savings annually. That's the expectation. 37 of them have already turned into investments, had been turned into investments by 2018. 42 of them were planned, and they turned into investments over time. And for 6 municipalities, there were 3.2 million euros worth of 234 efficient water pumps. And this project was realized with the Ipa funds. and there was 30.3 million kilowatt per hour energy saving, which is equal to 17.7 million Turkish liras. And the phase 2 program, which we are carrying out the events of currently, is again being carried out jointly with the World Bank, and it is worth around 13 million euros. And we mostly focused on energy efficiency projects as part of this program, especially for storage systems and electricity transmission. We had a project in place, and again, we worked with TEAS for the energy efficiency analysis for electricity transmission. And there was a potential that was revealed, which was 225 million euros annually. And again, for natural gas transmission, there was a potential discovered as 2 MCM per year. And we had some energy surveys at the 24 hydroelectric power plants and also at the thermal power plants. And also we've had some data management and digitalization projects for energy planning, which were in place. And we were talking about supply, demand, and projection modeling as well. And on the other hand, we had a data center established to support this project, and hardware was installed. And we also had software project management calculation trainings for the ministry personnel. And also we had the visibility and awareness campaign, especially during the Energy Efficiency Week. We had the Act Smart, Live Efficiently motto. And this was a promotional campaign we had during that week. And within the scope, we had social media posts. There were 2 public ads that were prepared. And also, we had the Ali's Energy Adventure magazine, which was given out to 1 million children in schools. And of course, the Phase 2 program is being conducted jointly with the World Bank, but also with the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and with the climate investment funds, which is close to 3 billion euros. We provided technical support for loans and MITSEF, TURSEF, TUREF now, and Pluto programs, energy, resource efficiency, renewable energy, waste management, household and corporate companies, energy efficiency, financing was part of this project where we provided technical assistance. And also there were capacity building activities targeting the ministry. And the most important element I could mention here is the National Energy Action Plan, and also the offshore energy generation and wave energy generation. These will all be part of my presentation. And when we look at the energy efficiency projects we carried out in Phase 1 and Phase 2, I would like to summarize them. In Phase 1, we had the energy efficiency market and financing mechanism development project. We carried this project out, and in this project, the EVDs, energy efficiency consultancy companies, SMEs, and banks were trained. We focused on awareness and consciousness raising activities, and we provided some tools for support and documents and procedures for support. And this was all carried out to further develop the energy market. And you will hear more about this in detail in my presentation. And there were around 262 surveys carried out, and 79 of these projects were transformed into investments at that time, and then this number increased over time as well. And we had energy efficiency projects in electricity generation, and we carried them out with EUAŞ. The first one was at Gökçekaya and Sarıyer hydroelectric power plants. We had efficiency analyses conducted, and there was a 5% efficiency increase potential, which was revealed. And at the Çan thermal power plant, we had some efficiency analyses as well, and we had the real-time performance monitoring program put in place, and there was an efficiency forecast of 1.5%, and we enabled a real-time monitoring application in place. And we also had the energy efficiency for electricity generation activities. And we had 22 hydroelectric power plants energy efficiency analyses conducted, which is equal to an installed power of 7,990 megawatts. And of course, we also made sure that there was a system implemented where we could instantly monitor efficiency and measure it as well. And the Hirfanlı hydroelectric power plant is planned to become part of this investment program as well. And we focused on energy efficiency projects in electricity transmission as well. We carried this out together with TEIAS. We worked together with the Italian chassis company here, and we compared the performance criteria. We focused on loss analysis and the production grid, and the transmission grid, and we focused on pricing recommendations as well. And the most important finding here was, as a result of the activities carried out at TEIAS, there was 225 million euros of savings potential discovered on the grid. And as part of different elements of the grid, we discovered the efficiency potentials ranked as low, medium, and high. And we also had energy efficiency projects in natural gas transmission, and we worked together with the DNVGL company, and the beneficiary was Botash. And we procured a natural gas transmission line simulator, SPS, and we conducted energy efficiency analysis on the pipelines and the compressors, and we focused on natural gas grid models and operation optimizations. And there was a discovery of a 10 to 15% savings potential in winter months. And when we come to the 2015 program, so after phase 1 and phase 2, we had the 2015 program, and we worked together with the Ministry of Treasury and Economy, and we worked together with the FCU, and we continue to do so. Again, there are the EU funds, also supported by Turkish funds, and we carried out pilot projects for the municipality, as I had mentioned earlier. So these pilot projects were developed through the phase 1 preparation activities we carried out jointly with the World Bank. So I won't repeat myself, but there was close to 10 million euros of investments for local governments, and these have a leverage effect. For example, you have a 1 megawatt hydroelectric power plant in Denizli. When the Denizli municipality discover how beneficial this is, they prefer to invest even more. So it has a leverage effect, and they really started to plan more installed capacity in these areas. And there was the hydroelectric power plant on the distribution line, which was planned in the Black Sea region in Trabzon, and this created awareness across the municipalities in the region as well. And the same case applied to the efficient water pumps. And we have the Evshed capacity building projects, which has a budget of 3.5 million euros. And here we focus on the energy efficiency and renewable energy areas training of local governments and universities. And this includes surveys, feasibility activities, bank reports, financial access preparations, and especially for universities and their R&D centers. We planned expert support and field visits. And another project was the capacity building for our energy efficiency and environment department. And there was a forecast and projection method, which was part of the training program, and there was a review and modernization component to this training as well. And when we look at the 2018 Ipa program, there were 2 pillars to this program. One is the part which we carry out jointly with the CFCU, and another part is carried out jointly with the World Bank, which will be the Phase 3 program. So after completing this Phase 2 program, we will be doing the technical assistance program, which is part of Phase 3 with the World Bank. And these are mostly going to be pilot projects, for example, purchasing electric buses to the Ankara Metropolitan Municipality. Currently, 3 buses will be bought, and the grant amount is 1.3 million euros. And the efficiency of these electric buses will be measured, and afterwards, maybe consideration of buying a fleet could come into play. And we also have the Botash and Temsan solar energy plant preparations, and also for the municipality. And we also have the starter and vortex equipment procurement for Botash. These are efficient equipments which will be preferred. And this is also a pilot project. On the other hand, with the Phase 3 stage, which will be carried out with the World Bank, we have various projects. One is to increase awareness of energy efficiency in households. Now, we will be carrying out consciousness raising activities targeting households, and there will be a consciousness index in place. Then there is the Botash waste recovery project. And this is part of applications at the LNG terminal and how to recover the gas the gas emissions at the LNG terminal. And another project is the capacity building of R&D for TEIAS, and also to increase the competition and transparency in the natural gas market. So the Phase 3 preparations are still ongoing. We are waiting to reach an agreement with the World Bank. And as part of the 2019 program, we will have the Phase 4 program conducted jointly with the World Bank. We will receive expert support from World Bank, and with the global expertise they have, it is very beneficial to transfer that know-how, and this creates a larger impact area. That's why we will have 2 more phases with the World Bank, and in the 4th phase, we will be focusing on offshore wind energy. We will have some field analyses, some measurements, and some meteorological studies, and we will also focus on a limitation study as part of the environmental and social impact analysis. And we will have field preparations in place. And we have also technical support being received from ESMAP, from the World Bank. And we are also working on the preparation of the roadmap for offshore wind energy in Turkey. We are very excited about this as well. Now I want to focus on the IPA 3 period. This will be between 2021 to 2027. And the EU will be redefining the strategy of these instruments they are providing. Now, as you know, there is a transition towards integrated energy systems across the world. So the generation, conversion, transmission, storage, marketization, trade of energy is all part of this. And there are 3 trends that we observe. One is decarbonization, the other is digitalization, and the other one is decentralization. Now, Turkey is moving forward in line with these trends, and our priority is to enable sustainable development through national technologies and portray a struggle against climate change. Now, when we look at the Green Deal, the EU Green Deal, and the priorities of Turkey, we can see that they are in line, and you can see how they complement one another with the arrows on the screen, especially in terms of carbon capture and sequestration, digital transformation, electrification, smart infrastructures, energy storage, transition to the hydrogen economy, and the use of natural gas as a transmission fuel. And those are things you can see on the Green Deal. And for us, you can see there is a plan to decrease foreign dependency, and there is a plan to increase national and renewable sources and technologies. And energy efficiency is planned to become a priority in the sector, and to ensure that primary energy supply comes from efficiency practices and controlling climate change, adding nuclear energy to our energy basket, and the continued use of natural gas and LNG. So all of these priorities complement one another, as you can see. For that reason, we are trying to draw up the framework of our strategic priorities as part of these partnerships we have. And we blended all these priorities and created a strategic framework. There is the strategic priorities, which is one pillar. And here we focus on the expansion of clean, sustainable, and efficient technology in the energy system. Our second priority is the connectivity and integration of the energy sector and markets. And when we look at our technical priorities, we have digital connectivity and transformation as one of our priorities. So use of existing data sources, visualization of data, analysis and evaluation, control and automation systems being integrated to the energy sector. And on the other hand, we want to expand the use of smart and green infrastructures in all grids and in all areas of life and all sectors, and the industrial sector as well, of course. And when we look at intervention tools, our first tool is capacity building and awareness raising. And secondly, we will focus on the expansion of technologies and pilot applications. We will purchase further equipment for this. And thirdly, the funding mechanism and market creation are important, and we will focus on collaboration with international institutions here. And our target groups are policy makers and regulatory authorities, and the energy stakeholders and the sector stakeholders, of course. And you can see our strategic priorities, technical priorities, our intervention tools in line with them, and our target groups. And through this, we want to continue the energy transformation in Turkey. Now, this strategic framework needed to be approved. So we initiated an energy dialogue last year. Despite COVID, we had meetings, questionnaires, reports, projects as part of this activity. We have two main significant reports. One is the activity we carried out with startups and R&D units, and the other one is with the policy makers and regulatory authorities. Now, in our first report, first of all, we focused on the needs of startups and research centers in Turkey, and we need a more robust long-term R&D strategy. There could be a coordination and monitoring system established to coordinate startup and R&D activities, and we can create a common synergy and knowledge platform. And we can encourage an R&D consortium. And also, we can target a more agile ecosystem. And we also understand that we need to make use of EU grants and funds. And in the second report, we looked at what could be done at the policy level. So we interviewed policymakers, regulatory authorities, and the market participants. And there were 5 trends that were revealed, and also the things that needed to be done. The first trend is the transition to renewable energy technologies and the decentralized energy systems. Now, to be able to cope with this and to be able to support this, we need to utilize digital technologies like machine learning, record chain decision support mechanisms, smart grids, Internet of Things, and remote generation plans. So we need a lot of these technologies, and these will increase. This list will grow bigger. And after that, we need to increase the share of intermittent generation facilities and the energy supply. And of course, energy storage and battery technologies are very important, and also virtual generation power plants are important. And we also believe that energy efficiency technologies and implementations will become more popular. But of course, we need to monitor this very closely. We need to use big data infrastructures, and we need to collect autonomous data for this. And we also foresee that tools for carrying energy sources and increasing efficiency will be more popular. Hydrogen and boron use will be a major part of this. And finally, national conventional resources need to be utilized in a sustainable and clean manner. For that reason, carbon sequestration and storage technologies will be required. So as a result, in the period 2021 to 2027, our strategic targets are focusing on the expansion of clean, sustainable, and efficient technologies and applications in the energy system, and enhancing the energy market and the infrastructure connections, and also encouraging innovation, digitalization, and technology transfer in the energy sector. So, for the planning of the first 2 years of IPA 3, virtual power plants, electrification, digitalization, remote monitoring control systems, natural gas and hydrogen blending, and decentralized energy are the main topics. And we had 17 projects in place under these topics worth 63 million euros. And with budget limitations and program reviews, we have only received the pre-approval of 2 projects, and one is from the Energy Affairs General Directorate, the Renewable Energy Source Areas Field Development Project, and the second one is from EVCHET, the Efficient Heating and Cooling Strategy Guideline Preparation. So it is a capacity building project. So we have received a preliminary approval, and currently the maturity evaluations are in place, and we are awaiting the approval of the EU. So generally, we can summarize what we did as part of IPA in this framework. That's all the information I can provide in this limited amount of time. But if you want to see the contents of our projects, you can visit www.energyprojeder.eu, or you can email us through dia2@energy.gov.tr. And also, we have social media accounts to share the outputs of phase 1 and phase 2. You can follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn as well. So thank you very much in advance, and I wish you all a very efficient forum. And I would like to thank all the other speakers in advance. I would like to thank everyone who put effort into this event. I wish our participants an efficient day. Thank you very much, and I would like to celebrate your Eid in advance. Goodbye.
We would like to thank Mr. Gökpınar for the valuable information he shared. Next, we will hear from hydromechanical consultant Jerry Westerman from Hatch. His presentation is titled Energy Efficiency in Electricity Generation Project. The floor is yours, Mr. Westerman.
Hello there. My name is Jerry Westerman. I'm a senior engineer with Hatch Limited. We're a consulting firm located in Ontario, Canada. I've been the project manager on this project called Energy Efficiency in Power Generation, and I'm pleased to present this project that has kept me very busy over the last almost 2 years, and also given me the opportunity to see our beautiful country. So the project was initiated in November 2018 guess that's over 2 years, isn't it? And will be completed at the end of May 2021. This is 1 year later than was originally scheduled, and as you may have guessed, the completion date was delayed due to the COVID pandemic. So without further ado, I will show you the screen here now and start my presentation. Okay. As you can see, the name of the project was Energy Efficiency and Power Generation, and the project number was CS01C. So let's start off with the project objectives. In short, we were to assess the potential for energy improvement at initially 14 hydropower plants, though this was later extended to 18 and finally to 22 hydropower plants. In addition to condition assessments, one of the mandates, the primary mandate, was to install efficiency monitoring systems at each plant in order to measure the deterioration of performance over time. Ultimately, the objective was to provide recommendations along with cost estimates for the preferred rehabilitation alternatives at each hydroelectric power plant. And there you see one of the power plants, the Altenkaya HPP, on the photo there. So now I'd like to describe the methodology and the details of the approach that the Hatch team used to complete this large scope of work. The project started with visits to each of the power plants by Hatch's mechanical and electrical experts to perform condition assessments on the turbines and generators, as well as other balance of plant equipment. We also conducted reconnaissance visits to determine the instrumentation requirements for the efficiency monitoring systems, which I'll get into more detail a little later. After these monitoring systems were installed, we carried out formal performance tests in order to calibrate these systems and put them into service. In addition to that scope, we conducted computational fluid dynamics analyses at 5 of the plants. We provided training on several topics to AWASH staff. Vibration analyses were carried out. These were field measurements at 18 of the power plants. Energy audits, which took the results from the performance testing, and I'll talk a little more to that later, but that was carried out at all 22 power plants. Communication systems were installed to send that data from the efficiency monitoring systems back to AWASH central headquarters. And at one of the stations, Gazenda, permanent vibration monitoring systems were installed on those units based on some of the issues they had at the with vibration at this station. And then finally, the final reports were prepared in order to document all the findings and to present the recommended alternative rehabilitation plans. The project organization chart, as you see in front of you, funding as well as oversight was provided by the World Bank and the European Union. Our immediate clients were the Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources and AWASH, the main utility in Turkey. The Hatch group is made up of not only Hatch Incorporated, but also several sub-consultants and subcontractors. Swiss Prohe in Ankara, a consulting firm there. Suener is a technical consulting firm that's led by Dr. Kutay Çelebioglu, and HPPE's Hydropower Performance Engineering, a testing facility, testing company located in Canada, and Hydrovision were a contractor that supplied the acoustic flow monitoring systems that were installed at some of the power plants. Here you see a map showing with the blue dots represents each of the 22 plants that we did these assessments on. You can see that they're scattered all around Turkey, and as I said at the beginning, it gave me personally and others on our team the opportunity to see a great deal of Turkey. So a real pleasure being able to visit so many of these locations. So I'll go through each one of the tasks in the scope of work in a little bit more detail. The condition assessments were carried out at 18 of the 22 hydropower plants, and as I indicated before, Hatch's turbine and generator experts, mechanical and electrical engineers, visited these sites, and were usually able to enter the turbines to see the condition of the runners, as you see in this one photo. We, in addition to the turbines and governors and the generators and exciters, we also conducted condition assessments on transformers, as well as balance of plant equipment such as ventilation system and overhead cranes and so on. The efficiency monitoring systems, which were quite innovative, I can certainly say. At 5 of the 22 plants, a somewhat traditional acoustic flow measurement system. These are permanent acoustic flow measurement systems that were installed inside the penstocks located just upstream of the inlet valves. And at the other 17 plants, a differential pressure, as we call it, which essentially takes readings off of the Winter Kennedy taps of the spiral case. These systems were used to essentially come up with a signal that could be used to determine the flow very accurately, though they did require calibration using another temporary method of flow measurement. I should point out that with one exception, only one unit at each one of these HPPs was fitted with a flow monitoring system. The one exception is Ataturk, where all 8 units were fitted with a differential pressure efficiency monitoring system. Here you get a view of some of the, just one example, a couple of examples here of the differential pressure efficiency monitoring system. The photo on the left provides a little more detail. The transducer on the left side, you can see, is measuring a differential pressure. There are 2 two ports on that sensor. The sensor on the right is used to measure turbine inlet pressure. And there, the photograph at the right shows you the panel, along with our expert engineer, Mr. Okan Gezer, who installed and joined us with basically as the expert of these efficiency monitoring systems. The performance tests were needed at every one of those stations. This was conducted by two of us hatch experts, who you see the gentleman on the right-hand side, Andrew Bridgman, and he's also training some of the AWASH engineers at the same time, and myself as well. I was another one of the chief of tests for the performance tests, and essentially these tests were mostly done using the dye dilution method, but some were also carried out using temporary acoustic flow measurement systems, and in one case at Carchemish we used current meters to measure the flow. So now I'm just going to spend a little more time on the dye dilution method, since that was the primary method that we used to calibrate these DP systems. For those of you who aren't aware, the acoustic flow measurement system is an absolute method of flow measurement, as they call it. So you do not need to calibrate an acoustic flow measurement system. So here's an image that shows just a typical power plant, and essentially the dye dilution method consists of the injection of a fluorescent dye. In this case, it's rhodamine WT, and that fluorescent dye is injected at the intake. That I'm just going to point to that intake with my cursor, if you can see that. And the known parameters associated with this injection of the dye is that we know exactly how much of the dye we're injecting, and we know that because we have the concentration, and we also are measuring very precisely just how much of this concentrated dye solution we're injecting. That dye passes through the power tunnel and the penstock, and it must completely mix with the water in the penstock before it is sampled from one of the same taps that we measure pressure with. We will sample the dye that is coming out of the turbine, and effectively we can calculate the flow using this this formula down here. C0, by the way, is the background concentration of dye in the water. It's typically very low, but you still need to account for that. Just another couple of photographs. This shows in the dark purple container here. It's sitting up on the scale. That's the injection solution. It is just a drop will spread very, very far because it's fluorescent. So we need to be careful not to spill it. And basically we measure using a scale the rate of injection. So you see the figure on the right-hand side showing that straight line. That's made up of several thousand data points, which is basically monitoring the weight, measuring the weight as a function of time in order to calculate the injection rate. Please excuse my cat in the background. Okay, and what we do at that point is this is a view, actually it's a view of me sitting in front of the fluorometer in the photograph there. And this is a typical trace that you might see that machine produces. And we're watching the dye as it comes through that fluorometer. And then we take discrete samples of the dye when we see that it has reached a plateau, as you see on the upper right-hand side. We then take those samples and we store them for later use, but we make up what we call standards, and we're effectively diluting the injection solution through a serial dilution step-by-step process. This jar contains a very small 10 milliliters or 20 milliliters maximum of the injection solution. We stir it up, and then we take 10 milliliters of that and we dilute that with another 2 liters approximately of water. We stir that, and then we take 10 milliliters of that and we dilute it with another 1500 milliliters of water, and we use this to calibrate our fluorometer so that we can determine the concentration of dye in those samples that we took from the turbine. It's a lot of material to cover in a short period of time, but I did want to at least give you a quick summary. So next, we'll look at some of the results. Here you see a typical result. We combine both index testing, and you see the index test readings here. It's the the blue diamonds, and we have 4 dye tests in this case, and the dye tests we're using to effectively set the point, the peak of this curve, okay? Because the index test by itself, we cannot, we're not measuring the exact flow or the absolute flow. We're only measuring a relative flow with the index test. So there's my cat again. Okay, yeah, so we produced this curve and many other curves that are typically measured, produced in order to produce a report. So now I'm going to move on to the energy audit. Another important measurement that we take as part of the performance tests is, and I mentioned it earlier, it's the turbine inlet pressure. So if we compare the turbine inlet pressure to the headwater level, okay, so the turbine inlet pressure would be measured here at the inlet to the turbine, and the headwater level is up here, and we can actually measure the head loss of water as it's flowing down through the water passages. And we call that the water passage efficiency. We are also determining by measurement the turbine efficiency. The generator efficiency we're not measuring. We are using the original equipment manufacturer's curves for that. And other electrical efficiencies refers to things like the bus and the transformer, and perhaps some other losses such as station service. Going quickly through this, I can't get into all details, but this would be the results of an energy audit that we carried out on the turbine. It's the turbine. These are the most interesting set of losses. In most cases, not all, but in most cases, this is where most of the losses occur in that system, in a hydraulic power plant, right? So yeah, we look at the peak efficiency point, and then we also look at the maximum power condition. In this case, the peak efficiency is only slightly higher than the maximum power condition. And as turbine efficiencies go, it's not a very high efficiency. We would expect for a larger station to have something well into the 90s. So yeah, this isn't very good. And this is a summary slide. It's 18 of the 22 stations, which provides a summary of the difference between the original turbine peak efficiency, which is this column right here, and the actual measured peak efficiency. And the difference has been annotated with a heat map, which shows the darker red as the biggest difference, and the pink as basically a difference somewhere between 2.5% and 5%, and then the white is those plants where the measured performance was very close to the original turbine's peak efficiency. I should point out that these values are generally based on the manufacturer's estimates, and in most cases, this was not demonstrated during the original commissioning. Okay, moving along. So in order to identify and come up with recommendations as to which components should be rehabilitated, and in some cases, if the performance is deemed to be quite acceptable, there's no requirement. There's no need to do anything to those to that equipment, right? So a piece of software that was developed by Hatch many years ago was called Hydrovantage. This is a piece of software. I'll be describing it to you in a little more detail. But essentially, it is an asset management software, and it is assessing the risks associated with continued operation of aging equipment. And that also considers the condition. It is possible to modify the age of the equipment based on the condition in which it's assessed. So this Hydrovantage analysis was done for every single one of the stations. Correction, it's done for 18 of the 22 stations. We weren't able to include this in the scope of the last 4. So just a little quick recollection of a failure, life cycle failure rates here. Oftentimes we get this early burn-in period where there could be more failures at the beginning, and then we get into this useful life period where the risk of failure is less, and then as we extend the life beyond a certain age, and of course this life varies depending on which piece of equipment you're referring to, the rate of failure will steadily increase. And oftentimes it follows an exponential curve like this, but that also varies. There is data that is available in the industry. A lot of this comes from the U.S. Department of Energy, as you see on this slide here. The data has a range as well, but effectively this is a cumulative failure probability curve, and it indicates that as you reach 100 years, the scale on the x-axis is time here in years, that there are essentially no more components surviving at this point. So yeah, we developed the failure probability curves based on data such as this. This just shows the interface screen. We have the ability to select components. Typical components would include stator windings, runners, spiral cases, governors, exciters. We have basically have curves that will represent all of the main pieces of equipment in a power station that are used to generate power. And this gives you a glimpse of the results, and effectively you can see that the age and the condition rating, as I indicated before, if the condition is particularly poor, such as this, the runner seals at this one hydro station were considered to be in poor condition, so the representative age was increased. And the efficiency increase actually comes from the energy audit that was performed. And so effectively we're using that efficiency increase that represents a benefit depending on the capacity factor of the hydro station. And so Hydrovantage uses that benefit combined with the cost of the intervention. And an intervention could be a complete replacement, or it could just be a refurbishment. An example of that would be a refurbished runner where you improve the surface finish and weld all the cavitation and restore its shape and restore its seals, as opposed to a completely new runner, which would be a replacement. And you can see the list of components which have been analyzed using this Hydrovantage software. Once we complete that first step, then Hydrovantage will provide an optimized intervention. This should say intervention, not interventional. Optimized intervention schedule. And this will actually provide, it's looking at the net present value and comparing the intervention against the do nothing. So you can see the lower cost, the cost savings associated with performing this intervention. And as you can see on these other columns, we also provide the internal rate of return as well as the payback period. Okay, and this provides just a view of one of the tables that provides the recommended intervention. In this case, it was to replace the turbine runner and to replace the runner as soon as possible, and provided the estimate not only for the single unit, but also for the entire plant. Okay, and moving on to some of the rest of the scope of the project, just another couple of slides left. The training, many different topics were discussed. The hands-on site training was done on the acoustic flow measurement, the differential pressure systems, as well as the dye dilution method. We attended Salzburg and some of the surrounding hydropower plants in Austria. It was a very good event. And some of the other training materials that were covered: CFD, computational fluid dynamics, efficiency measurement methods, and measurement devices. We also prepared a SharePoint site, as you might imagine, with 22 hydropower plants and several reports for each. The number of documents became quite difficult to manage. So you can see just a screenshot of the SharePoint site that allows the client, MENR, as well as AWASH staff to quickly go in and access the reports, not only the English versions, but also the Turkish translated versions. And that concludes my presentation. So I thank you very much for this opportunity. And yes, it's been a pleasure working in Turkey. Thank you and goodbye.
We would like to thank Mr. Westerman for his presentation. We will now take a 15-minute break, and we will be welcoming you back on your screens right after the break.
Enerji, insanların yaşamlarını sürdürebilmeleri için gerekli bir kaynak, ülkelerin refahını sağlamak için de en önemli araçlardan biridir. Artan dünya nüfusuyla gittikçe tükenen hidrokarbon kökenli enerji kaynaklarının yanında, yeni ve yenilenebilir enerji kaynaklarının kullanımını arttırmalıyız. Bu doğrultuda Avrupa Birliği, iklim değişikliğiyle mücadele amacıyla enerji verimliliğinin ve yenilenebilir enerji kaynaklarının payının arttırılmasını hedefliyor. Biz de bu hedef doğrultusunda ülkemizin artan enerji ihtiyacını karşılayarak enerji arz güvenliğini sağlamaya, enerji alanında ülkemizin rekabet edebilirliğini artırmaya ve sürdürülebilir kalkınma temelinde çevrenin korunmasına katkı sağlamaya çalışıyoruz. 2007 yılından bu yana enerji sektöründe kapasitenin geliştirilmesi için Avrupa Birliği finansmanıyla toplamda 106 milyon avro tutarında proje yürüttük ve yürütmeye devam etmekteyiz. Elektrik alanında uygulanan projelerle ülkemizin elektrik sistemi, Avrupa'nın elektrik sistemiyle uyumlu hale getirildi ve elektrik piyasamız geliştirildi. Bilinçli enerji tüketiminin sağlanabilmesi için enerji verimliliği projeleriyle binalarda enerji kimlik belgesi uygulamasına geçildi ve enerji tüketen ürünlerin enerji tüketimlerine dair bilgilendirmeler ürün ambalajlarında yer almaya başladı. Enerji verimliliği ve yenilenebilir enerji alanında Türkiye'nin uygulamaya koyacağı eylem planlarının hazırlıkları da yine Avrupa Birliği finansmanıyla yapılan projeler kapsamında tamamlandı. Daha iyi bir dünya ve ortak geleceğimiz için doğaya daha az zararı olan yenilenebilir enerji kaynaklarından faydalanmak amacıyla Avrupa Birliği ile çalışmalarımıza devam edeceğiz.
Değerli sektör paydaşlarımız, bilindiği üzere aday ülke olarak Avrupa Birliği tarafından sağlanan katılım öncesi mali yardım fonlarından istifade ediyoruz. Enerji ve Tabii Kaynaklar Bakanlığı olarak ülkemize tahsis edilen Ipa fonları ile enerji sektöründe kapasite geliştirme çalışmalarını gerçekleştiriyoruz. Bu kapsamda Ipa fonları ile 2007 yılından bu yana enerji sektöründe toplamda yaklaşık 106 milyon avro tutarında teknik yardım ve pilot ekipman alımı projelerini yürütmekteyiz. Ipa 1 ve 2 dönemlerinde bakanlığımızın ilgili kuruluşları, belediyeler ve üniversitelere yenilenebilir enerji ile enerji verimliliği kapasite geliştirme alanlarında destek sağlarken yine belediyelerimize pilot uygulamalarla yenilenebilir enerji sistemleri, verimli su pompaları ve elektrikli otobüs temini noktasında yardımcı olmaktayız. Ayrıca elektrik ve doğalgaz üretim ve iletiminde verimlilik, deniz üstü rüzgar alanında saha geliştirme ve ölçüm çalışmaları, enerji talebi ve enerji verimliliği modelleme kapasitesinin güçlendirilmesi gibi birçok farklı alt sektörde teknik yardım ve pilot ekipman alımı projelerini yürüttük ve yürütmeye devam etmekteyiz. Önümüzdeki süreçte Ipa 3 dönemi kapsamında da enerji sektöründe dönüştürücü bir etkinin sağlanması için kamu, özel ve sivil toplum sektörlerini birlikte ilgilendiren teknolojilerinin yerleştirilmesine, inovasyonun önceliklendirilmesine, sürdürülebilir, verimli, akıllı altyapıların kurulmasına, dijitalleşmenin hızlandırılmasına yönelik projeleri de hayata geçirmek için çalışmalarımızı sürdürüyoruz. Ortak geleceğimizi Avrupa Birliği ile ortak yürüttüğümüz yüzlerce proje ile şekillendiriyor, değerlerimizi yarına taşıyoruz.
Aklımda.
Enerji verimli buzdolabı almak yetmez. Onu verimli kullanmak da aklımda.
Kumandayı verir misin hayatım? Aklımda. Klimayı ideal oranda çalıştırıp enerjiyi boşa harcamamak da aklımda. Çak.
Hayatım, ben markete gidiyorum.
Hayatım.
Aklımda. Yakın yerlere arabayla gitmemek de aklımda. Hem senin geleceğin için, hem aile bütçemiz için, hem de kendi sağlığım için. Enerjimizi verimli kullanmak her zaman aklımda. Enerji verimliliğini aklından çıkartma, aklınla verimli yaşa.
Başladı. Amcamlar ısınma giderlerini yarıya indirmek için ne yaptı?
Yalıtım.
Ne oldu diyordu yani?
Mucize.
Evlenirken beyaz eşya aldınız. Ne sınıfıydı?
Bol artılı. Az elektrik harcıyor.
Evet.
Ne demek yani bu?
Akıllılık.
Ahmet, bazen toplu taşıma kullanıyorsun.
Evet.
Kısa mesafe yürüyorsun
Tamam.
ya. Neden?
Doğa için.
Araba az yaksın diye 2500 devirde kullanıyorsun. Camı klimayı aynı anda açmıyorsun ya. Bu nasıl kullanım oluyor?
Verimli.
Ne verimliliği? 2.
Enerji verimliliği.
Enerji verimliliği tabii.
Aynı kapasitedeki ürünlerden verimli olanı tercih et, aklınla verimli yaşa.
Enerji, insanların yaşamlarını sürdürebilmeleri için gerekli bir kaynak, ülkelerin refahını sağlamak için de en önemli araçlardan biridir. Artan dünya nüfusuyla gittikçe tükenen hidrokarbon kökenli enerji kaynaklarının yanında, yeni ve yenilenebilir enerji kaynaklarının kullanımını arttırmalıyız. Bu doğrultuda Avrupa Birliği, iklim değişikliğiyle mücadele amacıyla enerji verimliliğinin ve yenilenebilir enerji kaynaklarının payının arttırılmasını hedefliyor. Biz de bu hedef doğrultusunda ülkemizin artan enerji ihtiyacını karşılayarak enerji arz güvenliğini sağlamaya, enerji alanında ülkemizin rekabet edebilirliğini artırmaya ve sürdürülebilir kalkınma temelinde çevrenin korunmasına katkı sağlamaya çalışıyoruz. 2007 yılından bu yana enerji sektöründe kapasitenin geliştirilmesi için Avrupa Birliği finansmanıyla toplamda 106 milyon avro tutarında proje yürüttük ve yürütmeye devam etmekteyiz. Elektrik alanında uygulanan projelerle ülkemizin elektrik sistemi, Avrupa'nın elektrik sistemiyle uyumlu hale getirildi ve elektrik piyasamız geliştirildi. Bilinçli enerji tüketiminin sağlanabilmesi için enerji verimliliği projeleriyle binalarda enerji kimlik belgesi uygulamasına geçildi ve enerji tüketen ürünlerin enerji tüketimlerine dair bilgilendirmeler ürün ambalajlarında yer almaya başladı. Enerji verimliliği ve yenilenebilir enerji alanında Türkiye'nin uygulamaya koyacağı eylem planlarının hazırlıkları da yine Avrupa Birliği finansmanıyla yapılan projeler kapsamında tamamlandı. Daha iyi bir dünya ve ortak geleceğimiz için doğaya daha az zararı olan yenilenebilir enerji kaynaklarından faydalanmak amacıyla Avrupa Birliği ile çalışmalarımıza devam edeceğiz.
Değerli sektör paydaşlarımız, bilindiği üzere aday ülke olarak Avrupa Birliği tarafından sağlanan katılım öncesi mali yardım fonlarından istifade ediyoruz. Enerji ve Tabii Kaynaklar Bakanlığı olarak ülkemize tahsis edilen Ipa fonları ile enerji sektöründe kapasite geliştirme çalışmalarını gerçekleştiriyoruz. Bu kapsamda Ipa fonları ile 2007 yılından bu yana enerji sektöründe toplamda yaklaşık 106 milyon avro tutarında teknik yardım ve pilot ekipman alımı projelerini yürütmekteyiz. Ipa 1 ve 2 dönemlerinde bakanlığımızın ilgili kuruluşları, belediyeler ve üniversitelere yenilenebilir enerji ile enerji verimliliği kapasite geliştirme alanlarında destek sağlarken yine belediyelerimize pilot uygulamalarla yenilenebilir enerji sistemleri, verimli su pompaları ve elektrikli otobüs temini noktasında yardımcı olmaktayız. Ayrıca elektrik ve doğalgaz üretim ve iletiminde verimlilik, deniz üstü rüzgar alanında saha geliştirme ve ölçüm çalışmaları, enerji talebi ve enerji verimliliği modelleme kapasitesinin güçlendirilmesi gibi birçok farklı alt sektörde teknik yardım ve pilot ekipman alımı projelerini yürüttük ve yürütmeye devam etmekteyiz. Önümüzdeki süreçte İPA 3 dönemi kapsamında da Enerji sektöründe dönüştürücü bir etkinin sağlanması için kamu, özel ve sivil toplum sektörlerini birlikte ilgilendiren teknolojilerinin yerleştirilmesine, inovasyonun önceliklendirilmesine, sürdürülebilir, verimli, akıllı altyapıların kurulmasına, dijitalleşmenin hızlandırılmasına yönelik projeleri de hayata geçirmek için çalışmalarımızı sürdürüyoruz. Ortak geleceğimizi Avrupa Birliği ile ortak yürüttüğümüz yüzlerce proje ile şekillendiriyor, değerlerimizi yarına taşıyoruz.
Aklımda.
Enerji verimli buzdolabı almak yetmez. Onu verimli kullanmak da aklımda.
Kumandayı verir misin hayatım? Aklımda. Klimayı ideal oranda çalıştırıp enerjiyi boşa harcamamak da aklımda. Çak.
Hayatım, ben markete gidiyorum.
Hayatım.
Aklımda. Yakın yerlere arabayla gitmemek de aklımda. Hem senin geleceğin için, hem aile bütçemiz için, hem de kendi sağlığım için. Enerjimizi verimli kullanmak her zaman aklımda. Enerji verimliliğini aklından çıkartma, aklınla verimli yaşa.
Başladı.
Hadi
Hancanlar ısınma giderlerini yarıya indirmek için ne yaptı?
yalıtım.
Ne oldu diyordu yani?
Mucize.
Evlenirken beyaz eşya aldınız. Ne sınıfıydı?
Bol artılı. Az elektrik harcıyor.
Evet.
Ne demek yani bu?
Akıllılık.
Ahmet, bazen toplu taşıma kullanıyorsun.
Evet.
Kısa mesafe yürüyorsun
Tamam.
ya. Neden?
Doğa için.
Araba az yaksın diye 2500 devirde kullanıyorsun. Camı klimayı aynı anda açmıyorsun ya. Bu nasıl kullanım oluyor?
Verimli.
Ne verimliliği? 3, 2.
Enerji verimliliği.
Enerji verimliliği tabii.
Aynı kapasitedeki ürünlerden verimli olanı tercih et, aklınla verimli yaşa.
Enerji, insanların yaşamlarını sürdürebilmeleri için gerekli bir kaynak, ülkelerin refahını sağlamak için de en önemli araçlardan biridir. Artan dünya nüfusuyla gittikçe tükenen hidrokarbon kökenli enerji kaynaklarının yanında, yeni ve yenilenebilir enerji kaynaklarının kullanımını arttırmalıyız. Bu doğrultuda Avrupa Birliği, iklim değişikliğiyle mücadele amacıyla enerji verimliliğinin ve yenilenebilir enerji kaynaklarının payının arttırılmasını hedefliyor. Biz de bu hedef doğrultusunda ülkemizin artan enerji ihtiyacını karşılayarak enerji arz güvenliğini sağlamaya, enerji alanında ülkemizin rekabet edebilirliğini artırmaya ve sürdürülebilir kalkınma temelinde çevrenin korunmasına katkı sağlamaya çalışıyoruz. 2007 yılından bu yana enerji sektöründe kapasitenin geliştirilmesi için Avrupa Birliği finansmanıyla toplamda 106 milyon avro tutarında proje yürüttük ve yürütmeye devam etmekteyiz. Elektrik alanında uygulanan projelerle ülkemizin elektrik sistemi, Avrupa'nın elektrik sistemiyle uyumlu hale getirildi ve elektrik piyasamız geliştirildi. Bilinçli enerji tüketiminin sağlanabilmesi için enerji verimliliği projeleriyle binalarda enerji kimlik belgesi uygulamasına geçildi ve enerji tüketen ürünlerin enerji tüketimlerine dair bilgilendirmeler ürün ambalajlarında yer almaya başladı. Enerji verimliliği ve yenilenebilir enerji alanında Türkiye'nin uygulamaya koyacağı eylem planlarının hazırlıkları da yine Avrupa Birliği finansmanıyla yapılan projeler kapsamında tamamlandı. Daha iyi bir dünya ve ortak geleceğimiz için doğaya daha az zararı olan yenilenebilir enerji kaynaklarından faydalanmak amacıyla Avrupa Birliği ile çalışmalarımıza devam edeceğiz.
Değerli sektör paydaşlarımız, bilindiği üzere aday ülke olarak Avrupa Birliği tarafından sağlanan katılım öncesi mali yardım fonlarından istifade ediyoruz. Enerji ve Tabii Kaynaklar Bakanlığı olarak ülkemize tahsis edilen Ipa fonları ile enerji sektöründe kapasite geliştirme çalışmalarını gerçekleştiriyoruz. Bu kapsamda Ipa fonları ile 2007 yılından bu yana enerji sektöründe toplamda yaklaşık 106 milyon avro tutarında teknik yardım ve pilot ekipman alımı projelerini yürütmekteyiz. Ipa 1 ve 2 dönemlerinde bakanlığımızın ilgili kuruluşları, belediyeler ve üniversitelere yenilenebilir enerji ile enerji verimliliği kapasite geliştirme alanlarında destek sağlarken yine belediyelerimize pilot uygulamalarla yenilenebilir enerji sistemleri, verimli su pompaları ve elektrikli otobüs temini noktasında yardımcı olmaktayız. Ayrıca elektrik ve doğalgaz üretim ve iletiminde verimlilik, deniz üstü rüzgar alanında saha geliştirme ve ölçüm çalışmaları, enerji talebi ve enerji verimliliği modelleme kapasitesinin güçlendirilmesi gibi birçok farklı alt sektörde teknik yardım ve pilot ekipman alımı projelerini yürüttük ve yürütmeye devam etmekteyiz. Önümüzdeki süreçte İPA 3 dönemi kapsamında da enerji sektöründe dönüştürücü bir etkinin sağlanması için kamu, özel ve sivil toplum sektörlerini birlikte ilgilendiren teknolojilerinin yerleştirilmesine, inovasyonun önceliklendirilmesine, sürdürülebilir, verimli, akıllı altyapıların kurulmasına, dijitalleşmenin hızlandırılmasına yönelik projeleri de hayata geçirmek için çalışmalarımızı sürdürüyoruz. Ortak geleceğimizi Avrupa Birliği ile ortak yürüttüğümüz yüzlerce proje ile şekillendiriyor, değerlerimizi yarına taşıyoruz.
Aklımda.
Enerji verimli buzdolabı almak yetmez. Onu verimli kullanmak da aklımda.
Kumandayı verir misin hayatım? Aklımda. Klimayı ideal oranda çalıştırıp enerjiyi boşa harcamamak da aklımda. Çak.
Hayatım, ben markete gidiyorum.
Hayatım.
Aklımda. Yakın yerlere arabayla gitmemek de aklımda. Hem senin geleceğin için, hem aile bütçemiz için, hem de kendi sağlığım için. Enerjimizi verimli kullanmak her zaman aklımda. Enerji verimliliğini aklından çıkartma, aklınla verimli yaşa. Hadi hanım.
Amcamlar ısınma giderlerini yarıya indirmek için ne yaptı?
Yalıtım.
Ne oldu diyordu yani?
Mucize.
Evlenirken beyaz eşya aldınız. Ne sınıfıydı?
Bol artılı. Az elektrik harcıyor.
Evet.
Ne demek yani bu?
Akıllılık.
Ahmet, bazen toplu taşıma kullanıyorsun.
Evet.
Kısa mesafeyi yürüyorsun
Tamam.
ya. Neden?
Doğa için.
Araba az yaksın diye 2500 devirde kullanıyorsun. Camı klimayı aynı anda açmıyorsun ya. Bu nasıl kullanım oluyor?
Verimli.
Ne verimliliği? 2.
Enerji verimliliği.
Enerji verimliliği tabii.
Aynı kapasitedeki ürünlerden verimli olanı tercih et, aklınla verimli yaşa.
Distinguished participants, welcome back. We will continue our program with the presentation about the project titled Technical Review, Analysis and Assessment of Energy Efficiency on Transmission Grids. I would like to leave the floor to the Transmission Management Systems Product Leader of the Chessie Company, Mr. Cristiano Candia, to deliver his speech.
Good afternoon and good evening. It's my pleasure on behalf of Chessie and all the team that work on this technical review, analysis and assessment of energy efficiency to present the results and the outcome of this assignment. Today's scope will be, today's presentation will cover an overall project presentation concerning the objectives and the scope. The first three major tasks related to the technical and financial assessment carried out during the project. The comparison with NSOE members, transmission efficiency and investment plan, and transmission planning and pricing procedures. And at the end, the conclusions, the final outcomes of this project in which a saving potential has been also identified and estimated. The objective of the project was very wide. The scope of work covered a lot of topics, and all of these matters, all of these items were all focused on improving the efficiency and the security of the transmission grid. Not only technical assessment and not only recommendations and solutions were under the objectives of this project, but also sharing the knowledge, sharing the information, and disseminating the results to all the stakeholders was a strong part of the work that has been done by the team. The project outcomes could be divided into three main categories. The technical assessments, the economic and financial ramifications of the improvements and the reinforcement suggested. And finally, the capacity building, in which as said, the outcomes, the knowledge, the experience has been shared between the consultant and the beneficiary, in particular, the different department of TEIAS. The scope of work was originally divided into 4 tasks, from 1 to 4 in this list, and a 5th one has been added as an extension at the end of the project to cope with insulation, coordination, and security distances against lightning. The very first activity carried out during the delivery of this project was the understanding and the familiarization with the transmission, with the Turkish transmission grid, the structure and the grid topology. Immediately, the east-west cross-section was identified as one of the weak points of the Turkish power system. And in fact, on one of the transmission lines over this corridor, the blackout had originated in 2015. Not only the grid was considered, but also the generation mix and the power plant location were analyzed to understand how the energy is produced and how and where the efficiency could be searched and could be improved on the generation side. Before 1955, the generation mix was covered by more than half by thermal and hydro generation. And from 1985 onwards, the liquid fuels has been progressively substituted by natural gas, of course, increasing the efficiency thanks to the gas turbines or the combined cycle that were enabled by the adoption of natural gas. One of the reasons why the cross-section is one of the weak points is because the largest availability of hydro generation is on the eastern side of the country, while the largest load consumption is on the western side of the country, near the area of Istanbul. Moreover, the load demand happened to increase significantly, more than 3 times over the last 40 years, sorry. And this huge rate of increase in the load consumption was reflected also in the increase of the gross generation, in the increase of the generation capacity on the grid and the commissioning of new power plants. Even in these significantly fast-growing environment in the energy sector, losses were estimated at around 2.5% of the overall consumption, which is actually something already quite common in not just in developing countries, but also in advanced power system in Europe. From the market point of view, the full rollout of the Turkish electricity market was completed in 2015. And so the country had already shifted the dispatching and the electricity cross-selling and wholesale from a vertically integrated structure to a deliberalized environment with market rules. In 2015, also an electricity markets operating company was established to run this market on a daily basis. The latest and largest disruption or disturbance happened in Turkey was the blackout on March 2015. During that blackout, already ENTSO-E had identified a number of improvements for the Turkish power system to make the system more secure and more reliable. Coming to the comparison between ENTSO-E members TSOs, some of them of ENTSO-E member TSOs and TEAS, the first question was to identify which country could have been significantly compared to TEAS during this assessment. Which country could have been a good benchmark for TEAS in the different categories that have been covered during this task one. To identify those countries, we used a number of different criteria, some technical, some economic. For each of them, the best comparison has been identified. And then on average, we identified two countries that could have been taken as a reference for the overall assignment, being on average the closest to TEAS, or on the contrary, being TEAS on average the closest to those two in the different categories considered. Those two countries were Italy, Terna, the TSO, and Red Eléctrica in Spain as a second comparison. The first stage of the assessment was to identify which service quality index and security indexes TEAS could have better to adopt or to leverage on in order to better monitor the performance of his grid operation using that KPIs. Immediately, it was advisable for us to, it was advisable for TEAS to start following the European Union regulation and start adopting KPIs that were already suggested in system operation guidelines from ENTSO-E. And specifically, three major categories has been suggested: security of operation, the quality of frequency, and the regional coordination, to try already identify which could be the scenario in which Turkish could be one of the members of the ENTSO-E. At the time, this was one of the options for TEAS to become a member of ENTSO-E. The second step was to suggest a number of key performance indexes already consolidated all over the world. Some of them also stated as best practice all over the world, and that most of the TSOs, especially in ENTSO-E, were already using at the time, in order to start measuring performances and being able to compare those performances with other ENTSO-E members. For example, the most widely adopted TSO, most widely adopted indexes among the TSOs has been suggested, like the energy not supplied, the average interruption frequency index, or the average interruption duration index, which are adopted by more than half or even more than 90% of the TSOs in the European interconnected system. As a general assessment, the situation for TEIAS was quite encouraging, because at least in every category was more than acceptable, was already implemented in a more than acceptable way, and the only gap that could have been identified was not having key performance indexes covering the maintenance costs. Coming to the core of the project, the transmission efficiency assessment and the investment plans suggested by these technical analysis. The first topic that was tackled during these tasks was the transmission network assessment, the grid operation assessment. This network assessment covered the three main topics: the short circuit analysis, the reactive power compensation, and the comparison of some transmission reinforcement alternatives. Short circuit was at the time one of the major concerns for TEIAS, because the short circuit current, the short circuit power of some substation was moving very fast, closely to the breaker capacity, so to the limit imposed by the equipment, the breakers installed in that substation. So the question that was answered was if an overall upgrade all over the country of the circuit breakers was actually needed, or if only some portion of the grid or some substations could have been upgraded because they needed to, and others could be safely keep on operating with the existing equipment. Fortunately, the answer was that the large majority of the substations were already under, or were still under, the breaker capacity. So the short circuit current was not a concern, as far as it would not have been increasing more in the future. Only some substations should have been equipped with new circuit breakers, and the new breaker rating that was identified was 50 kiloamps for those substations. Concerning the reactive compensation devices, long story short, the idea was to identify those compensation devices that could have been helping TEIAS in controlling the voltage under N or N-1, N-2 contingency situations. And especially when all the other dispatching action had been exhausted, had been used without managing the overvoltage or the undervoltage violation. That said, a number of reactive compensation devices has been identified, as we see: capacitors, fixed capacitors, switchable capacitor banks, or reactors has been suggested, and the locations of those has been also identified. Coming to other technology alternatives that TEIAS could have been exploiting in the following years to this assessment, one of those was the deployment of HVDC links on the Turkish transmission grid. Not only HVDC links, but also HVAC lines at a voltage level of 800 kV. On average, all these reinforcements were useful to improve the transfer capacity, the loading of the lines, the power flows, and the grid operation in general. Of course, on the contrary, they caused some overloads under contingency condition or some voltage violation under some other faults happening. One of the most interesting technology that TEIAS was already testing at the time of this assessment, which was confirmed and also boosted by the result of this project, was the dynamic line rating. TEIAS had already identified a set of lines that were good candidates to be equipped by dynamic line rating. And in this assessment, starting from the average wind all over the country, and then considering the advantages and the increase of the line ampacity caused by that wind conditions, most of the lines that TEIAS had identified were confirmed as good candidates for a dynamic line rating, as well as others has been identified and has been suggested. Coming to the equipment, so coming on the engineering side, the efficiency of the transmission element had been searched by looking at the design of the overhead lines and the transformers. Concerning the overhead lines, the natural answer to the search for efficiency was to upgrade the overhead lines, both in terms of the chance of raising the operating voltage, as well as the chance of changing the conductors with more efficient ones. The two options that could have been followed by TEIAS were one, the demolition of all the old lines and replacement with new ones, and the other one was, of course, the revamping of the existing lines with new technological enhancements. Concerning the transformers, a very interesting task has been carried out because a draft regulation for all new power transformers in TEIAS transmission grid has been derived by the EU regulation number 548 from published in year 2014. This regulation was based on the peak efficiency index they use as a benchmark for new equipment. Coming to the investment plans, all the reinforcement and all the technological alternatives has been compared using the ENSOE cost-benefit analysis methodology, and in particular considering the economic net present value of each reinforcement defined by the benefits of the present value minus the investment cost minus the operational cost. Using this methodology, the reinforcement in terms of compensation devices, the reinforcement in terms of new transmission links, HVDC or HVAC, has been merged into a list of reinforcement that has been ranked according to the financial ramification, benefit to cost ratio, net present value, and internal rate of return. These indexes, these financial analysis helped to draft a roadmap for the improvements starting from 2021 and moving forward up to 2023. Concerning the transmission planning and procedures, three main questions has been suggested: how the grid performance of improvements are evaluated, if the social welfare and other non-technical benefits are considered, and which tools are used. No significant gaps has been identified, especially in the first two questions, and only probably a better choice for the unit commitment tools used in future dispatching could have been taken by TEAS to move forward in the planning procedures of new transmission infrastructure. Coming to the analysis of the market and the pricing mechanism, the assessment suggested that two different pricing mechanisms could be good choices for TEAS. The nodal price on the supply side, because it would allow the price to reflect the value, the true value of the energy, and on the other side, the zonal price for the demand side, mainly for political reasons, because it's usually better accepted by the customers, and also because the constraints coming from this pricing mechanism are very rarely binding for the market. Also, a reactive power analysis and roadmap has been carried out, and different stages to the transition from only an active ancillary service market to a full active and reactive ancillary service market environment has been drafted, starting from 2018 onwards up to a certain scenario to be defined in the future. To wrap up the results of the project, the general recommendation that were drafted at the end of this huge number of assessment were that from the engineering point of view, TEAS is absolutely aligned with what was, and still is for sure, absolutely aligned with the international best practices and the standards. Some equipments may have been upgraded to follow the trend increase of the short circuit current, for example, or to improve the performance in terms of efficiency for transformers. And the procedures and the applied by TEAS in everyday operation showed no significant gaps with the best practices of other members of ENTSO-E. What was interesting to recommend, what was interesting to highlight as a final outcome concerns the 800 kV voltage level. Although it has the same net present values of all the HVDC links studied as one of the alternatives during the network assessment. The higher voltage level has, or an 800 HVAC line, has a significant larger internal rate of return. So it would be an investment that repays itself faster than the others. It wasn't the best choice for TEIAS because the 800 kV lines would have been only justified if the rated power of these new transmission links would be at least higher than 3,500, which was not the case for the scenarios that we analyzed. Finally, the very most significant outcome of this efficiency assessment was the saving potential that has been identified for TEIAS. The idea was to define a KPI that could have been monetizing all the improvements provided by the different reinforcement or revamping of the equipment suggested, and that could really quantify how much efficiency was achievable in the next 5 years by TEIAS according to the roadmap drafted in this report. The reduction of network losses and the reduction of energy not served was taken as a reference performance for the monetization of this saving potential. The result is, the figures said that in Turkey there was a saving potential larger than 200 million euros at the time that could have been achieved, that could have been exploited by TEIAS by simply following the roadmap that has been drafted by the different network assessment. Some of the project and the outcomes had a larger potential on the different categories, energy not served or reduction in network losses, and all of them contributed to the final outcome and saving potential. Thank you for your attention.
While we thank Mr. Candia for his presentation, we would now like to move on to our next speaker. Up next, we will hear from Mr. Robert Melema, the Chief Executive Officer of DNV, who will talk about the energy efficiency in natural gas transmission project. The floor is yours.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending this presentation on options for enhancing energy efficiency in natural gas transmission networks. My name is Robert Melema and I'm a mechanical engineer working at the DNV office in Groningen, the Netherlands, which is the former research facility of NV Nederlandse Gasunie, the Dutch gas TSO, and for which I worked some 22 years before the facilities were acquired by DNV back in 2009. Today, I will discuss with you our project sponsored by World Bank and the European Union, aimed at exploring energy savings options in the Turkish gas transmission network, as operated by Botash. Before I start my presentation, I would like to thank the World Bank and the EU for providing us the opportunity to do such a very interesting study. Furthermore, I would like to thank the project lead institution, the Turkish Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources, represented by Mr. Karavelli and Mr. Erkin. My gratitude also extends to Mr. Karakoze and his colleagues within Botash. My personal thanks go out to my Turkish colleagues, Mrs. Fatma Moray and Mr. Faik Tursun, who played a pivotal role in supporting our team of experts during this study. I would like to discuss the following topics with you. After a brief introduction of DNV and our activities, I will explain the project background. For a proper understanding of some of the technical details to be discussed further on, I will elaborate on the way gas networks are operated in general and the way simulation software is being used. Next, I will explain the compressor analysis that we did for identifying possible energy savings potential in daily compressor deployment, and I will go into the options for waste heat recovery. Last but not least, I will present the outcomes of the network operation optimization analysis, which have revealed a large energy savings potential. Finally, I will present the main conclusions, and perhaps there will be time left for answering some questions. First, allow me to introduce DNV and its global activities in business assurance and risk management to you. DNV started off some 156 years ago as a classification society for the maritime industry. By developing class rules and performing inspections and verifications, assurances were provided to insurance companies regarding seaworthiness of ships that applied for an insurance. Over the years, the DNV activities gradually expanded to other sectors like oil and gas, energy, digital solutions, and business assurance. Nowadays, DNV employs over 12,000 scientists and engineers all over the world. We serve over 100,000 customers and have representations in over 100 countries. 5% of our annual revenue is invested in research projects aiming at developing rules, guidelines, and recommended practices that directly benefit our clients and are made available to the industry. DNV provides assurance to a wide variety of stakeholders when it comes to safety, risk management, efficiency, and performance. Currently, we are focusing on some key aspects of the energy industry, like energy transition, decarbonization of supply chains, integration of energy systems, securing affordable energy supply, and safe, efficient, and digital operations. In the gas industry, our activities are aimed at aspects like changing fuels, growing gas demands, security of supply, synergies with renewables, increasing regulations, globalization of the gas market, emission reduction, and aging infrastructure and decommissioning. I now would like to inform you about the project background and the purpose of the study. Due to the size of the country, the Turkish gas transmission network is vast, with over 14,000 kilometers of high and middle pressure pipelines, a total of 9 compressor stations, and specific facilities like underground gas storages, an LNG import terminal, and many entry and exit points. The sheer size of the network and large distances to be covered, resulting in long response times, make the network difficult to control. This is even enhanced by increasing regulatory demands and Turkey becoming increasingly a local gas hub for supply of gas from east to west. This situation is promoting a no-grid strategy when it comes to keeping the network in operation, but because of that, much energy is wasted, as I will explain later. The project was sponsored by World Bank and the EU, and the lead institution was the Turkish Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources. The beneficiary of our services was Botash, and the total project budget amounted to 349,000 euros. The project duration was 2 years. The main objective of the project was to provide Botash with an advice on methods for reducing energy consumption and associated carbon emissions. For this purpose, several aspects were included, which are listed here. Apart from the specified focus areas, the project was also intended to demonstrate to Botash on how simulation tools can be used to identify energy savings options and to increase awareness of such options being available in the first place. The project has basically been divided into 3 work streams, each covering a different aspect of a typical energy efficiency study. Work stream 1 was about the collection of data and information for making the D&V expert team familiar with the main features and components of the gas network. Workstream 2 focused on compressor stations and individual compressor deployment. In this phase, also options for waste heat recovery and other local energy efficiency measures were explored. In Workstream 3, alternative ways of operating the network were explored, resulting in energy savings by minimizing the overall compressor deployment. In this section, I would like to explain the way software tools like models and simulators are being used for improving network operations. Considering the complexity of gas transmission networks and mutual reliance of many process parameters, the proper network simulator is a very useful tool. At the start of the project, it was established that Botash already used a D&V modeling package named Synergy Gas. Synergy Gas is an offline simulator that allows dispatchers to train their skills in operating the gas network, like in a flight simulator, instead of practicing in real-life operations with possible dramatic consequences in case of poor decision-making. The existing simulation model was found to be unfit for purpose by our experts. And besides, Botash had the intention to use a different D&V modeling tool named Synergy Pipeline Simulator, or SPS, instead. Since this model was capable of doing real-time modeling using live data input from the SCADA system. The conversion from Synergy Gas to SPS took considerable effort, especially regarding the faultless entering of the many details of the network into the model. Here you see an overview of the SPS functionality and features, but I leave it up to you to study these yourself if you are interested. Additional information on SPS may be found on the D&V website. Before looking into the overall gas network operations, we first assessed the specification and operation of the 9 compressor stations and individual compressors. The results of this were also used to further fill the SPS model with data on compressor performance. Compressors are used for increasing the pressure of the gas inside a gas transmission network and establishing a gas flow from one point to another. Gas flows from a point of high pressure to a point of low pressure, whereas low pressure is caused as a result of internal friction within the gas as a result of the flow itself. If the flow is stopped, for instance, by closing a valve, the pressure within the gas network eventually will level out. Over long distances, it may be required to apply multiple compressors to compensate for the friction losses underway, as is shown in the chart. At regular intervals of hundreds of kilometers, a compressor station is to be built for lifting the gas pressure at a high enough level for allowing the gas to be transmitted to the next station and eventually the point of exit. Compressors produce head, or pressure difference, and flow. And the setting of both, the operating point, can be achieved by varying the speed of the compressor. In each of the possible working points or the operating envelope, the compressor performance differs, and the challenge is to operate the compressor at a working point with the highest possible efficiency. Operators are striving to run compressors at the most efficient working point. Compressors in natural gas transmission system are mostly powered by gas turbine, where gas is put in as a fuel and power is transferred to the compressor. In this chart, a typical compressor map is shown, with the flow on the horizontal axis and the head projected vertically. The light green area represents the operating envelope with the highest possible efficiency. The curved lines represent different rotational speeds. Studying the compressor operations at the various compressor stations revealed that the quality of the SCADA data and equipment specifications to work with was rather poor. But after some data repairs, we found that the gas compressors are working well within efficiency ranges that may be expected. In total, a savings potential of some 2 million cubic meter of natural gas was found by allowing the compressors to run at more efficient working points, but it has to be noticed that such savings in reality cannot be achieved in total due to operational restraints like the strong desire to minimize the number of starts and stops to prevent thermal shocks harming the compressor units too much. After having studied the compressor stations, we explored options to reduce energy consumption by waste heat recovery. Waste heat from the gas turbine exhaust may be used to produce electric power or be the source of thermal energy like in district heating. Such energy savings do not limit Botash's own energy consumption, but energy consumption at other places like in power plants or in households may be reduced. We also looked into options for replacing gas turbine-driven compressors by electrical-driven versions. For recovering waste heat from exhaust systems, sufficient heat over a year has to be available for justifying the associated investments. As a rule of thumb, heat recovery systems should be able to operate at full load during 80% of the time. This, of course, depends on the capacity of the heat recovery system and the deployment of the compressor station. The former rule of thumb implies that only part of the available heat can be recovered. The capacity of the heat recovery system is to be adjusted to the load duration of the compressor station. Eventually, based on their load duration, 3 compressor stations qualified for heat recovery, being Dogoboyezid, Kairli, and Sivas. Based on the typical loads and capacity involved, a cash flow analysis of the application of an organic Rankine cycle heat recovery system has been done. The organic Rankine cycle is considered to be the most appropriate technique to be applied at gas compressor stations. The cash flow analysis, however, showed that application of an ORC is not economically viable. Based on an investment of some 6.3 million euro, a project payback time of 16 years has been calculated. Considering the anticipated life of the ORC system, the investment will not pay out. Another option for waste heat recovery is supplying heat to a district heating system. One of the backsides of this option is lack of heat demand in summer, resulting in a reduced uptime of the system. Another difficulty is the fact that compressor stations typically are built in remote areas where distances to urban areas are quite considerable. Electrification of gas compressor drives will result in savings of some 30% of primary energy per compressor. Replacing of existing gas turbines by electric drives will require high investments though, which will not pay out. In new built compressor stations, electric drives may be considered, but this will require a large enough connection to the power supply grid. But above all, gas supply will be made dependent on the availability of grid power. Based on the information obtained in the previous project phases, a network operations optimization has been done. In gas network operations, security of supply is key and will prevail at all times. On the other hand, if costs can be avoided without jeopardizing security of supply, this would also always be an aspect to be considered. Hence, the golden rule of gas network operations: seek the highest level of security of supply against the lowest possible costs. Finding the proper balance between the sometimes contradicting interests remains the task of the network operator. but decisions can be supported by using simulation tools. As a demonstration on how to use SPS network simulators, a total of 6 scenarios were studied, aiming at achieving both security of supply and energy efficiency at an acceptable level. 4 scenario analysis, aiming at obtaining the maximum level of security of supply in specific situations, showed that the brought-up cases, like earthquakes, were severe to such an extent that interruption of gas supply could not be avoided. But the model outcomes showed ways to prolong survival time of the system, buying valuable time to take action to control the damage as much as possible. 2 scenarios, aiming at improving energy efficiency in 2 typical gas transmission situations in summer and winter, showed that a savings potential of 10 to 20% exists, representing tens of millions of cubic meters of natural gas. The difference between the realized gas consumption and the modeled gas consumption is shown in the chart on the right. Here you can see that there is a significant difference in between both values. This brings me to the overall conclusions from this study. Firstly, it may be concluded that a large potential exists for saving energy by optimizing pressure control inside the network. It is up to Botash now to decide what energy efficiency improving strategies will be followed. It was found that the apparent level of maintenance and the visited compressor station was on par, and that the compressor operators were very motivated to achieve improvement. Introducing the SPS model as an aid in further network operations optimization is an important first step to be taken by Botash, but the model requires continuous attention to keep it up to date, and staff should be trained in using the model for various purposes, like capacity planning and dispatcher training. This brings me to the end of the presentation. I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and if you have any specific questions, please let me know. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for this presentation. Now we're going to have another 15-minute break, and we will be welcoming you back right after the break.
Enerji, insanların yaşamlarını sürdürebilmeleri için gerekli bir kaynak, ülkelerin refahını sağlamak için de en önemli araçlardan biridir. Artan dünya nüfusuyla gittikçe tükenen hidrokarbon kökenli enerji kaynaklarının yanında, yeni ve yenilenebilir enerji kaynaklarının kullanımını arttırmalıyız. Bu doğrultuda Avrupa Birliği, iklim değişikliğiyle mücadele amacıyla enerji verimliliğinin ve yenilenebilir enerji kaynaklarının payının arttırılmasını hedefliyor. Biz de bu hedef doğrultusunda ülkemizin artan enerji ihtiyacını karşılayarak enerji arz güvenliğini sağlamaya, enerji alanında ülkemizin rekabet edebilirliğini artırmaya ve sürdürülebilir kalkınma temelinde çevrenin korunmasına katkı sağlamaya çalışıyoruz. 2007 yılından bu yana enerji sektöründe kapasitenin geliştirilmesi için Avrupa Birliği finansmanıyla toplamda 106 milyon avro tutarında proje yürüttük ve yürütmeye devam etmekteyiz. Elektrik alanında uygulanan projelerle ülkemizin elektrik sistemi, Avrupa'nın elektrik sistemiyle uyumlu hale getirildi ve elektrik piyasamız geliştirildi. Bilinçli enerji tüketiminin sağlanabilmesi için enerji verimliliği projeleriyle binalarda enerji kimlik belgesi uygulamasına geçildi ve enerji tüketen ürünlerin enerji tüketimlerine dair bilgilendirmeler ürün ambalajlarında yer almaya başladı. Enerji verimliliği ve yenilenebilir enerji alanında Türkiye'nin uygulamaya koyacağı eylem planlarının hazırlıkları da yine Avrupa Birliği finansmanıyla yapılan projeler kapsamında tamamlandı. daha iyi bir dünya ve ortak geleceğimiz için doğaya daha az zararı olan yenilenebilir enerji kaynaklarından faydalanmak amacıyla Avrupa Birliği ile çalışmalarımıza devam edeceğiz.
Değerli sektör paydaşlarımız, bilindiği üzere aday ülke olarak Avrupa Birliği tarafından sağlanan katılım öncesi mali yardım fonlarından istifade ediyoruz. Enerji ve Tabii Kaynaklar Bakanlığı olarak ülkemize tahsis edilen Ipa fonları ile enerji sektöründe kapasite geliştirme çalışmalarını gerçekleştiriyoruz. Bu kapsamda Ipa fonları ile 2007 yılından bu yana enerji sektöründe toplamda yaklaşık 106 milyon avro tutarında teknik yardım ve pilot ekipman alımı projelerini yürütmekteyiz. Ipa 1 ve 2 dönemlerinde bakanlığımızın ilgili kuruluşları, belediyeler ve üniversitelere yenilenebilir enerji ile enerji verimliliği kapasite geliştirme alanlarında destek sağlarken yine belediyelerimize pilot uygulamalarla yenilenebilir enerji sistemleri, verimli su pompaları ve elektrikli otobüs temini noktasında yardımcı olmaktayız. Ayrıca elektrik ve doğalgaz üretim ve iletiminde verimlilik, deniz üstü rüzgar alanında saha geliştirme ve ölçüm çalışmaları, enerji talebi ve enerji verimliliği modelleme kapasitesinin güçlendirilmesi gibi birçok farklı alt sektörde teknik yardım ve pilot ekipman alımı projelerini yürüttük ve yürütmeye devam etmekteyiz. Önümüzdeki süreçte İPA 3 dönemi kapsamında da enerji sektöründe dönüştürücü bir etkinin sağlanması için kamu, özel ve sivil toplum sektörlerini birlikte ilgilendiren teknolojilerinin yerleştirilmesine, inovasyonun önceliklendirilmesine, sürdürülebilir, verimli, akıllı altyapıların kurulmasına, dijitalleşmenin hızlandırılmasına yönelik projeleri de hayata geçirmek için çalışmalarımızı sürdürüyoruz. Ortak geleceğimizi Avrupa Birliği ile ortak yürüttüğümüz yüzlerce proje ile şekillendiriyor, değerlerimizi yarına taşıyoruz.
Aklımda.
Enerji verimli buzdolabı almak yetmez. Onu verimli kullanmak da aklımda.
Kumandayı verir misin hayatım? Aklımda. Klimayı ideal oranda çalıştırıp enerjiyi boşa harcamamak da aklımda. Çak.
Hayatım, ben markete gidiyorum.
Hayatım.
Aklımda. Yakın yerlere arabayla gitmemek de aklımda. Hem senin geleceğin için, hem aile bütçemiz için, hem de kendi sağlığım için. Enerjimizi verimli kullanmak her zaman aklımda. Enerji verimliliğini aklından çıkartma, aklınla verimli yaşa.
Başladı.
Hadi
Hancanlar ısınma giderlerini yarıya indirmek için ne yaptı?
yalıtım.
Ne oldu diyordu yani?
Mucize.
Evlenirken beyaz eşya aldınız. Ne sınıfıydı?
Bol artılı. Az elektrik harcıyor.
Evet.
Ne demek yani bu?
Akıllılık.
Ahmet, bazen toplu taşıma kullanıyorsun.
Evet.
Kısa mesafe yürüyorsun
Tamam.
ya. Neden?
Doğa için.
Araba az yaksın diye 2500 devirde kullanıyorsun. Camı klimayı aynı anda açmıyorsun ya. Bu nasıl kullanım oluyor?
Verimli.
Ne verimliliği? 2.
Enerji verimliliği.
Enerji verimliliği tabii.
Aynı kapasitedeki ürünlerden verimli olanı tercih et, aklınla verimli yaşa.
Enerji, insanların yaşamlarını sürdürebilmeleri için gerekli bir kaynak, ülkelerin refahını sağlamak için de en önemli araçlardan biridir. Artan dünya nüfusuyla gittikçe tükenen hidrokarbon kökenli enerji kaynaklarının yanında, yeni ve yenilenebilir enerji kaynaklarının kullanımını arttırmalıyız. Bu doğrultuda Avrupa Birliği, iklim değişikliğiyle mücadele amacıyla enerji verimliliğinin ve yenilenebilir enerji kaynaklarının payının arttırılmasını hedefliyor. Biz de bu hedef doğrultusunda ülkemizin artan enerji ihtiyacını karşılayarak enerji arz güvenliğini sağlamaya, enerji alanında ülkemizin rekabet edebilirliğini artırmaya ve sürdürülebilir kalkınma temelinde çevrenin korunmasına katkı sağlamaya çalışıyoruz. 2007 yılından bu yana enerji sektöründe kapasitenin geliştirilmesi için Avrupa Birliği finansmanıyla toplamda 106 milyon avro tutarında proje yürüttük ve yürütmeye devam etmekteyiz. Elektrik alanında uygulanan projelerle ülkemizin elektrik sistemi, Avrupa'nın elektrik sistemiyle uyumlu hale getirildi ve elektrik piyasamız geliştirildi. Bilinçli enerji tüketiminin sağlanabilmesi için enerji verimliliği projeleriyle binalarda enerji kimlik belgesi uygulamasına geçildi ve enerji tüketen ürünlerin enerji tüketimlerine dair bilgilendirmeler ürün ambalajlarında yer almaya başladı. Enerji verimliliği ve yenilenebilir enerji alanında Türkiye'nin uygulamaya koyacağı eylem planlarının hazırlıkları da yine Avrupa Birliği finansmanıyla yapılan projeler kapsamında tamamlandı. Daha iyi bir dünya ve ortak geleceğimiz için doğaya daha az zararı olan yenilenebilir enerji kaynaklarından faydalanmak amacıyla Avrupa Birliği ile çalışmalarımıza devam edeceğiz.
Değerli sektör paydaşlarımız, bilindiği üzere aday ülke olarak Avrupa Birliği tarafından sağlanan katılım öncesi mali yardım fonlarından istifade ediyoruz. Enerji ve Tabii Kaynaklar Bakanlığı olarak ülkemize tahsis edilen Ipa fonları ile enerji sektöründe kapasite geliştirme çalışmalarını gerçekleştiriyoruz. Bu kapsamda Ipa fonları ile 2007 yılından bu yana enerji sektöründe toplamda yaklaşık 106 milyon avro tutarında teknik yardım ve pilot ekipman alımı projelerini yürütmekteyiz. Ipa 1 ve 2 dönemlerinde bakanlığımızın ilgili kuruluşları, belediyeler ve üniversitelere yenilenebilir enerji ile enerji verimliliği kapasite geliştirme alanlarında destek sağlarken yine belediyelerimize pilot uygulamalarla yenilenebilir enerji sistemleri, verimli su pompaları ve elektrikli otobüs temini noktasında yardımcı olmaktayız. Ayrıca elektrik ve doğalgaz üretim ve iletiminde verimlilik, deniz üstü rüzgar alanında saha geliştirme ve ölçüm çalışmaları, enerji talebi ve enerji verimliliği modelleme kapasitesinin güçlendirilmesi gibi birçok farklı alt sektörde teknik yardım ve pilot ekipman alımı projelerini yürüttük ve yürütmeye devam etmekteyiz. Önümüzdeki süreçte İPA 3 dönemi kapsamında da enerji sektöründe dönüştürücü bir etkinin sağlanması için kamu, özel ve sivil toplum sektörlerini birlikte ilgilendiren teknolojilerinin yerleştirilmesine, inovasyonun önceliklendirilmesine, sürdürülebilir, verimli, akıllı altyapıların kurulmasına, dijitalleşmenin hızlandırılmasına yönelik projeleri de hayata geçirmek için çalışmalarımızı sürdürüyoruz. Ortak geleceğimizi Avrupa Birliği ile ortak yürüttüğümüz yüzlerce proje ile şekillendiriyor, değerlerimizi yarına taşıyoruz.
Aklımda.
Enerji verimli buzdolabı almak yetmez. Onu verimli kullanmak da aklımda.
Kumandayı verir misin hayatım? Aklımda. Klimayı ideal oranda çalıştırıp enerjiyi boşa harcamamak da aklımda. Çak.
Hayatım, ben markete gidiyorum.
Hayatım.
Aklımda. Yakın yerlere arabayla gitmemek de aklımda. Hem senin geleceğin için, hem aile bütçemiz için, hem de kendi sağlığım için. Enerjimizi verimli kullanmak her zaman aklımda. Enerji verimliliğini aklından çıkartma, aklınla verimli yaşa.
Başladı.
Hadi abicim.
Amcamlar ısınma giderlerini yarıya indirmek için ne yaptı?
Yalıtım.
Ne oldu diyordu yani?
Mucize.
Evlenirken beyaz eşya aldınız. Ne sınıfıydı?
Bol artılı. Az elektrik harcıyor.
Evet.
Ne demek yani bu?
Akıllılık.
Ahmet, bazen toplu taşıma kullanıyorsun.
Evet.
Kısa mesafeyi yürüyorsun
Tamam.
ya. Neden?
Doğa için.
Araba az yaksın diye 2500 devirde kullanıyorsun. Camı klimayı aynı anda açmıyorsun ya. Bu nasıl kullanım oluyor?
Verimli.
Ne verimliliği? 2.
Enerji verimliliği.
Enerji verimliliği tabii.
Aynı kapasitedeki ürünlerden verimli olanı tercih et, aklınla verimli yaşa.
Enerji, insanların yaşamlarını sürdürebilmeleri için gerekli bir kaynak, ülkelerin refahını sağlamak için de en önemli araçlardan biridir. Artan dünya nüfusuyla gittikçe tükenen hidrokarbon kökenli enerji kaynaklarının yanında, yeni ve yenilenebilir enerji kaynaklarının kullanımını arttırmalıyız. Bu doğrultuda Avrupa Birliği, iklim değişikliğiyle mücadele amacıyla enerji verimliliğinin ve yenilenebilir enerji kaynaklarının payının arttırılmasını hedefliyor. Biz de bu hedef doğrultusunda ülkemizin artan enerji ihtiyacını karşılayarak enerji arz güvenliğini sağlamaya, enerji alanında ülkemizin rekabet edebilirliğini artırmaya ve sürdürülebilir kalkınma temelinde çevrenin korunmasına katkı sağlamaya çalışıyoruz. 2007 yılından bu yana enerji sektöründe kapasitenin geliştirilmesi için Avrupa Birliği finansmanıyla toplamda 106 milyon avro tutarında proje yürüttük ve yürütmeye devam etmekteyiz. Elektrik alanında uygulanan projelerle ülkemizin elektrik sistemi, Avrupa'nın elektrik sistemiyle uyumlu hale getirildi ve elektrik piyasamız geliştirildi. Bilinçli enerji tüketiminin sağlanabilmesi için enerji verimliliği projeleriyle binalarda enerji kimlik belgesi uygulamasına geçildi ve enerji tüketen ürünlerin enerji tüketimlerine dair bilgilendirmeler ürün ambalajlarında yer almaya başladı. Enerji verimliliği ve yenilenebilir enerji alanında Türkiye'nin uygulamaya koyacağı eylem planlarının hazırlıkları da yine Avrupa Birliği finansmanıyla yapılan projeler kapsamında tamamlandı. Daha iyi bir dünya ve ortak geleceğimiz için doğaya daha az zararı olan yenilenebilir enerji kaynaklarından faydalanmak amacıyla Avrupa Birliği ile çalışmalarımıza devam edeceğiz.
Değerli sektör paydaşlarımız, bilindiği üzere aday ülke olarak Avrupa Birliği tarafından sağlanan katılım öncesi mali yardım fonlarından istifade ediyoruz. Enerji ve Tabii Kaynaklar Bakanlığı olarak ülkemize tahsis edilen Ipa fonları ile enerji sektöründe kapasite geliştirme çalışmalarını gerçekleştiriyoruz. Bu kapsamda Ipa fonları ile 2007 yılından bu yana enerji sektöründe toplamda yaklaşık 106 milyon avro tutarında teknik yardım ve pilot ekipman alımı projelerini yürütmekteyiz. Ipa 1 ve 2 dönemlerinde bakanlığımızın ilgili kuruluşları, belediyeler ve üniversitelere yenilenebilir enerji ile enerji verimliliği kapasite geliştirme alanlarında destek sağlarken yine belediyelerimize pilot uygulamalarla yenilenebilir enerji sistemleri, verimli su pompaları ve elektrikli otobüs temini noktasında yardımcı olmaktayız. Ayrıca elektrik ve doğalgaz üretim ve iletiminde verimlilik, deniz üstü rüzgar alanında saha geliştirme ve ölçüm çalışmaları, enerji talebi ve enerji verimliliği modelleme kapasitesinin güçlendirilmesi gibi birçok farklı alt sektörde teknik yardım ve pilot ekipman alımı projelerini yürüttük ve yürütmeye devam etmekteyiz. Önümüzdeki süreçte İPA 3 dönemi kapsamında da enerji sektöründe dönüştürücü bir etkinin sağlanması için kamu, özel ve sivil toplum sektörlerini birlikte ilgilendiren teknolojilerinin yerleştirilmesine, inovasyonun önceliklendirilmesine, sürdürülebilir, verimli, akıllı altyapıların kurulmasına, dijitalleşmenin hızlandırılmasına yönelik projeleri de hayata geçirmek için çalışmalarımızı sürdürüyoruz. Ortak geleceğimizi Avrupa Birliği ile ortak yürüttüğümüz yüzlerce proje ile şekillendiriyor, değerlerimizi yarına taşıyoruz.
Aklımda.
Enerji verimli buzdolabı almak yetmez. Onu verimli kullanmak da aklımda.
Kumandayı verir misin hayatım? Aklımda. Klimayı ideal oranda çalıştırıp enerjiyi boşa harcamamak da aklımda. Çak.
Hayatım, ben markete gidiyorum.
Hayatım.
Aklımda. Yakın yerlere arabayla gitmemek de aklımda. Hem senin geleceğin için, hem aile bütçemiz için, hem de kendi sağlığım için. Enerjimizi verimli kullanmak her zaman aklımda. Enerji verimliliğini aklından çıkartma, aklınla verimli yaşa.
Başladı.
Hadi anneciğim.
Amcanlar ısınma giderlerini yarıya indirmek için ne yaptı?
Yalıtım.
Ne oldu diyordu yani?
Mucize.
Evlenirken beyaz eşya aldınız. Ne sınıfıydı?
Bol artılı. Az elektrik harcıyor.
Evet.
Ne demek yani bu?
Akıllılık.
Ahmet, bazen toplu taşıma kullanıyorsun.
Evet.
Kısa mesafe yürüyorsun ya. Neden?
Doğa için.
Araba az yaksın diye 2500 devirde kullanıyorsun. Camı klimayı aynı anda açmıyorsun ya. Bu nasıl kullanım oluyor?
Verimli.
Ne verimliliği? 3, 2.
Enerji verimliliği.
Enerji verimliliği tabii.
Aynı kapasitedeki ürünlerden verimli olanı tercih et, aklınla verimli yaşa.
Dear participants, welcome back. As time is passing, we are now going to continue with a presentation from Chief Engineer at Stantec, Mr. Mesut Avcı, on the energy efficiency project within the scope of the Phase 1 program. The floor is yours.
Hello, I'm Mesut Avcı. I'm from the Stantec company. I am the technical manager, technical product leader, and here I am going to be talking about the energy efficiency project as part of the Ipa program, and I wanted to deliver a presentation about the outputs of the project and the current trends. Our presentation is titled Energy Efficiency, Financing and Market Development, and our project, which is part of this presentation, was an energy efficiency project, and basically we focused on the financing and the energy efficiency market development. We carried out various activities. So to take a general look on our presentation, first of all, we will be focusing on our project EU IPA 2012 CSO4, Energy Efficiency and Consultancy Services. We'll focus on that. And then I will be talking about the fundamental activities around energy efficiency market development. And I will be talking about the outputs of these activities and the impacts it has had on the current market development situation. And I will then talk about the fundamental activities around energy efficiency financing, and I'll talk about the main outputs of these activities and the reflections of the outputs. So I would like to first start by introducing the project. The name of the project is the EU Instruments of Pre-Accession 2012 Energy Sector Technical Assistant Projects, CSO4, Consultancy Services for Energy Efficiency. And the contracting authority is the Director General of Foreign Affairs of the Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources, and the beneficiary what is the Renewable Energy Directorate General, and currently it is now titled EVCHED, the Department of Energy Efficiency and Environment of the Ministry. And we started on October 2015. It lasted for about 24 months, and the leading contractor was MWH at the time. Now the company is called Stantec. It's a consortium, and that's how this project was brought to life. When we look at the goals of the project, there were four main goals: market development and scale increasing in industrial and building sectors for energy efficiency, and the commercial credit support for industrial and building sectors for energy efficiency. And thirdly, we were focusing on the Esco market development for development of projects in energy efficiency. And as part of these goals, the project had two main tasks, as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation. One was to support market development in energy efficiency in industrial and building sectors. And we also wanted to focus on capacity building for energy efficiency for commercial credit support. And we also had many subtasks as part of this project. If we are to review them quickly, there was a policy support task in task A, then task B. There was a market research for energy efficiency. For task C, there was the preparation for knowledge sharing and awareness raising activities. Task D was for the training program developments for energy efficiency consultancies. And in Task E, we focused on the Esco model contract development. In F, we focused on the energy efficient materials and equipments and a tool to be developed. In Task G, we focused on energy efficiency project creation. In Task H, we focused on commercial banks and training and capacity building programs. In Task I, we focused on the preparation of guidelines for stakeholders. In Task J, we focused on the feasibility identification of banking products and the evaluation. In Task A, we focused on SME support with project financing. In Task M, we focused on awareness and visibility actions around energy efficiency. And in N, we talked about environment and social summaries. And in Task O, we talked about the gender equality. So when we look at it in general, when we talk about the market development and activities targeting market development in energy efficiency, we see that the activities under these topics were reviewed. First of all, I want to talk about our main activities. Task A was to enable political support for the efficient implementation of energy efficiency, of the energy efficiency strategy. So we reviewed the energy efficiency directive for this purpose, and we made sure to compare this with the National Energy Efficiency Action Plan, and we also created a roadmap for the transformation implementation of the Energy Efficiency Directive, and we also enabled assistance for the preparation of a process for monitoring and evaluation of these programs. And we tried to answer questions around buildings, transportation, agriculture, and the specific ED bullet points. And secondly, we conducted a market research for energy efficiency, and we created a report in relation to this. And besides this, we created a benchmarking tool. As part of this report, we looked at the energy efficiency technologies and evaluated them, those which could be implemented in the industrial area and in the building sector. And we also reviewed the energy saving potentials for each sector. And then in, again, the same sectors, industry and building sectors, we looked at the energy consumptions and energy efficiency potentials and investment amounts. So we created an inventory around this. And finally, we focused on a benchmarking activity for these sectors again. When we look at the outputs of the energy efficiency market research briefly, or the results, if I may, there were two main sectors. In the industry sector, there's 6.3 to 10.4 tons equivalent oil of potential savings. And for this to be realized, there needs to be around $20 to $25 billion of investment. And this will lead to $4 to $6.5 billion of cost savings. And on the building side, there can be a saving of 0.4 to 1 tons of oil equivalent saved annually. And for this to be realized, there needs to be an investment of 0.43 to $1 billion US dollars. And this will lead to around the investment amount is 1.4 to 3.5 million, and the previous figures were the savings amount. And in Task C, we focused on knowledge sharing and awareness raising activities, and we prepared many materials around these purposes. And these materials are sectoral brochures, posters that include success stories around energy efficiency. We also organized various events. We carried out seminars and workshops, and we contacted around 9 chambers of industry at the time, and we focused on information sharing and awareness raising. And we also provided information about energy efficiency activities and capacity building. And we also carried out similar activities with other stakeholders, not just the Chamber of Industry. And we went to many organized industrial areas, and we came together with many sectoral unions, and we carried out the seminars and workshops. And again, we also provided teachers training for the personnel of the Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources. And as part of these activities, first of all, we carried out a needs analysis, for the technical staff of the ministry. And there were two main areas that were revealed, the energy efficiency model financing and the Esco models were the areas which required training. So we focused our materials on that, and that's how the teachers' training took place as well. As part of Task D, again, we focused on various training programs around the energy efficiency market development. And this was mostly for the EVDs, the energy efficiency consultancy companies. And again, we carried out a needs analysis, and we created a training agenda in line with the results of this needs analysis, and we carried out these activities. And in the scope of these trainings, first we focused on the introduction and the basic concepts. We talked about the project and the activities that would be carried out. And we talked about what type of joint activities we could undertake together throughout the 2 years with the energy efficiency consultancy companies. And then we focused on investment evaluation and energy surveys. And for 8 days, we focused on process technologies. There were detailed technical trainings in this part. And finally, we focused on Esco project developments and contract preparation, and that was for 2 days. And again, this was part of the results of the needs analysis, because some of the EVDs, the energy efficiency consultancy companies, wanted to go into the Esco market, so it was a demand from them. As part of Task E, we developed Esco model contracts, and there were 2 parallel activities undertaken in this scope. First of all, we created a roadmap for the Esco market development, and we also crowned this with a report. And we also focused on legal, financial, and technical setbacks or limitations preventing the development of an Esco market, and we focused on what types of actions could be taken to overcome these setbacks. So we then created a roadmap, and according to this roadmap, we identified the short, medium, and long-term actions that could be taken, and the stakeholders which would be involved in these actions, and how to do them. And then we created various Esco contract drafts, shared savings EPS, verified sharing savings, EPS, and guaranteed saving EPS, leasing, and also finally the power purchase agreement targeting energy generation. So we created all these drafts, and as we were creating these drafts, again, part of a consultancy project, we utilized the drafts that were prepared, and we also took the feedback around these drafts into account. And these drafts were shared with some local financial institutions and various unions, chambers of industry, and public institutions. And we came together with all these parties and asked for their feedback around these previously prepared drafts. And according to that feedback, we tried to turn these drafts into more useful drafts. And as part of Task G, we focused on energy efficiency project creation and energy surveys. We carried out various energy surveys. First of all, we prepared energy survey and bank report drafts. And of course, these drafts weren't very different from the already accepted drafts in the ministry. We made sure there weren't any major deviations, but we focused on developing them and improving them further. And these drafts were prepared for 3 different survey types. We also created a bank report draft, and this is basically the approach we had to transforming these technical energy surveys into a language which could be understood by bank officials because they are very technical and comprehensive. So we tried to convert that into a bank report, and we created a draft, some short reports, basically. So for enterprises with an energy survey report, they could explain their projects in the scope to a bank and apply for funding. And this created a presentation for them, basically, in the form of a bank report. And we developed various drafts, of course, as well as energy efficiency experts, financial experts were part of these draft preparations. And then we created an energy efficiency toolkit. Again, it was in this. It consisted of all the calculation tools for energy surveys. And as a result of all these preparations, as part of our project, we carried out energy surveys for our SMEs. We had 260 surveys in place. So in terms of guidelines for the stakeholders, we prepared various guidelines for energy efficiency consultancy companies and Escos. And we focused on the preparation of projects, how the technical evaluation, financial evaluation, and financial access would look like, and how the most appropriate Esco model contract could be selected. So all these guidelines were part of this activity. And also, since there's going to be a need for funding, the ways to build solid relationships, good relationships with financial institutions were part of these guidelines. And the preparation of Esco contracts and the signing process, and finally, the project implementation and operation were part of these detailed guidelines. So our second topic is the basic activities around energy efficiency funding. And to summarize those, we first of all focused on training and capacity building for commercial banks as part of Task H, and mostly we focused on introduction to energy efficiency and energy efficiency funding. We focused on these two main topics. And financial institutions, when you look at the commercial banks in Turkey, there is a significant lack of awareness about energy efficiency. So we introduced energy efficiency to them, and we tried to describe the benefits of energy efficiency in the way that they would understand, and how they could use energy efficiency for sales and marketing and strategy development, and the way it could create added value for them. We conducted trainings around all these topics, and specifically for energy efficiency financing, we focused on how there was such a low risk in financing such projects, and we focused on the sustainability and competition capabilities of such companies. And we underlined that these are low-risk projects and that there should be a special funding for these projects. And we stated that such a structure within the bank would be very beneficial. So we focused on these topics in the training. And we also prepared the guidelines I mentioned previously for banks and leasing companies as well. And we shared the tangible outputs of our studies in these guidelines, and we informed them about how they could evaluate the current market conditions and how they could develop a strategy to position themselves in the energy efficiency market. and how they could create a new initiative within the existing organizational structure, and also the operations and systems. They need to set up the procedures, manuals they need to develop for these projects, and creating a project implementation unit and how they could do that. And for ESCOs that could be eligible for borrowing, how they could establish relationships with them, because just the way ESCOs need to build good relationship with the banks need to build good relationships with them as well. And we talked about energy performance contract projects, financing, and how they could accurately evaluate these projects and review the parameters. And we talked about collaborating with vendors and maybe developing equipment and devices and how they could build a good relationship with them. And also, we talked about how they can develop resources for these projects. So these were all part of our guidelines. And one of the most important activities we carried out maybe was Task J, and that was identification of the feasibility and evaluation of the new banking products. So we created a report. There were three main sections to this report. We had three main functions, basically. The first part was around the the energy efficiency financing market analysis in Turkey. And there is actually a significant market potential, and there is low importance given or low attention paid to energy efficiency projects. There is a lack of awareness, and it's not just about the banks or the leasing companies, but generally in enterprises and different sectors and segments. There is a lack of awareness, especially in the SME segment, and high costs and high interest rates, and the financing costs being high, and an uncertainty, a volatility in the market is also one of the underlying reasons. So there is a lower appetite for investment in this area. And another bullet point was that local financial institutions don't want to be dependent mostly on international financial institutions in their initiatives, because mostly the local financial institutions receive funds for these projects from international financial institutions. And the energy efficiency financing usually is coming from international financial institutions, and they feel that they are dependent on these international financial institutions, and that's why they don't take any initiatives in this area. And another result we saw was the lack of guarantee tools for energy efficiency credit or performance risks, and the performance risk is actually lower, and there is actually a saving created from the performance. So all these dynamics actually need to be taken into account in the credit evaluation, and that's a structure, a foundation that is required. And of course, the required infrastructure is non-existent, and the Esco financing market is still underdeveloped in Turkey. After that, we focused on global best practices and success stories. And finally, we focused on the financing mechanisms compatible with Turkey and we evaluated them. And I would like to state a few of them here because this is an important umbrella, and we believe it has an important place in energy efficiency projects. We prepared a roadmap in this area, and we focused on the capacity building of financial institutions, especially local and international financial institutions have a significant role here. The development of specific loans is important, and the international financial institutions should have an active role in this. And green bonds should be utilized. Again, the international financial institutions will have an important role here. And intermediary financing should also be utilized, and both international and national institutions have an important role here together with the public sector. And having a partial credit guarantee fund established is important. And the exception of performance warranties is important, especially on the basis of the banking supervision regulatory authority. A performance guarantee is an important guarantee in the energy efficiency projects. And the development of the Esco market is important, and there is an important role that falls on the public sector and the international financial institutions. And also, the participatory funds need to be utilized. Again, the participation banks should be part of this together with international financial institutions. And invoice financing should be used. Again, the public sector, energy supply companies in industrial areas play an important role in this. And also, the cluster financing utilization is important. International financial institutions, public sector, chambers, and industrial zones have an important role here. They can take initiatives. And also, establishing a rolling capital is very important. And as part of Task K, we focused on supporting SMEs for project financing. And at this point, we looked at the energy surveys, which were carried out as part of Task G, and we looked at the energy efficiency projects which were identified. And we focused on the establishment of a bridge between these companies and the local financial institutions. And we focused on the existing loans, credit products, banking products, or some incentives that may be in place. We wanted to inform them about this information. And we wanted to facilitate the use of energy efficiency funding, which is creating a setback. The lack of knowledge around using this funding is creating a setback for these projects. And SMEs can be quick in taking investment decisions, but with the costs increasing over time, and when you compare the financing costs with comparable countries, you see that the costs are relatively higher in Turkey. So energy efficiency is not a high priority element for SMEs due to these reasons. And the financing of the projects and the aspects around this need to be better understood. And despite the fact that the public sector tries to improve understanding around these issues, there is still a limitation, a setback here. And actually, we were not able to reach our goal fully, and that is because the existing structures of financial institutions aren't very flexible. They're quite rigid. They have very specific procedures in place, and maybe that needs to be supported with the legislation, and maybe the Banking Regulation Supervision Agency could work together with the ministry to provide support in this area, and various initiatives need to be taken to increase the appetite for energy financing, and the motivation for these activities need to be increased. And as the market develops further, maybe these bank reports will inevitably reach the results we desire. So this is the end of my presentation, and I would like to thank everyone.
We would like to thank Mr. Mesut Avcı for the information he shared. In our last session, we will leave the floor to Mr. Mehmet Aydoğdu, the director of RETA company, who will be sharing his presentation on the project titled Enhancing Visibility of Energy Sector Program Outputs and Raising Public Awareness in the Field of Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency.
Hello, I'm Mehmet Aydoğdu. In this presentation, I will be talking about the activities we conducted for awareness raising as part of the Ipa Energy Efficiency project. I am the president of RETA agency, and we have carried out communication activities in various sectors for 30+ years. And for the past 15 years, we have focused on the energy sector. We are conducting the communication activities of many institutions functioning in this area, and we try to inform individuals about the things they can do for a more efficient life. And the technical consultancy of this project was done by Kubilay Habash. The beginning of the project was in May 2019. It was planned to be finalized in a year. However, due to the pandemic, it was extended until the 28th of May 2021, so it took a total of 2 years. And the total budget of the project is 348,475 euros. As we were designing the strategy, we made use of the YEGEM Household Energy Efficiency Research 2010, Kadir Has University, Turkish Communities Energy Preferences Research 2018, Energy Efficiency Awareness Index Quantitative Research. And we also looked at the National Energy Efficiency Action Plan for 2027-2023, and there was a target of savings of 66.6 million tons of CO2 equivalent greenhouse gas emissions, and the target is to invest 10.9 billion by 2030. In 2020, the Energy Efficiency Awareness Index was 157.7 out of 200. And when we look at the parameters that create the awareness index, one is the information dimension and the other is the behavior dimension. Now, the information dimension is relatively higher than the behavior dimension. And when we look at the information transforming into behavior in terms of lighting solutions, we see that information level is at 95%, while implementation is at 51.5%. In transportation, we see a similar case. For insulation, we see 91 to 49%. For equipment use, we see 87% to 56%. And for heating and cooling, it's 86% to 49%. So as we can see from this chart, awareness or being well informed is quite high in terms of energy. However, when it comes to implementation, the same sensitivity is not displayed. Again, in the same research, there was a question about why do you think it is important to use energy efficiently? Mostly it was to reduce the bills, preserve the environmental and natural resources, increase living standards, countries' development, reducing foreign dependency, transferring resources to the future generations. And when we look at the communication plan main components, we focused on agriculture, transportation, service, household, and we are going to be focusing only on households as part of our activities, and we will be focusing on heating, cooling, insulation, and lighting. In terms of the question related to where people receive information related to energy efficiency, we see this chart. So we focused our communication activities on TV programs, internet sites, print publications, radios, local governments, billboards, and posters. And we had three main goals for our campaign. And we identified the communication language, content, and visual solutions according to these three goals. One, to raise the awareness of households about building insulation, high energy efficiency class household devices, lighting, cooking, hot water, heating, cooling, and efficient driving techniques. And secondly, we wanted to create awareness and then a raise in consciousness about a more efficient use of energy and the savings and environmental impacts this would have. And in terms of consumption habits, thirdly, we wanted the households to take energy efficiency into account in their behaviors. So at the micro level, the target is to create awareness about the individual gains. And at the macro level, we wanted to create awareness about the budget of the national economy and the world in general. The starting point of our communication strategy was focusing on the fact that individuals mostly consider economic elements and environment, comfort, and country, world, the future come after the other facts. The message we deliver to the target group would consist of if you use efficient energy, you will preserve your budget and you will contribute to a sustainable future and your children's future. And if you start this change by your own means today, you will create positive impact for the world and you'll be part of the movement. In terms of a communicative language, we chose an entertaining, appealing, dynamic, informing, and humorous language, and to clearly state it to the target group, we said use your energy efficiently and protect your pocket, your country, and the world. And our umbrella statement came from a Turkish proverb, and we said act smart, live efficiently, and we use this as a hashtag. And in our 2-year-long communication activities, we focused on social media management, public ads, painting contests, infographic videos, 3D animations, PR activities, Energy Efficiency Week events, poster activities, teacher training, support videos, and digital booklets, energy efficiency strategic communication plan. And I will try to go over each one of these. So for the social media management that lasted for 2 years, we focused on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And on our social media channels, we had 28 posts on Facebook, and it reached 10,305,000 people. On Instagram, we had 218 posts, and we managed to reach 7,893 people. On Twitter, we shared 267 posts and reached 344,000 people. And on YouTube, we reached 1.2 million people, and on the website, we also reached our target group. In 2020, when in the Google searches, there was a 25% increase in searches related to energy efficiency. As of May 2019, with the different contents that were shared, 20,198,000 shares were made, and 37% of the active social media users were reached. And on the social media posts, we talked about driving, walking, room thermostats, the ideal degree, the installations on the buildings, on windows and doors, and high energy efficiency class devices, switching the electricity off, cycling. We had posts about all of these, and we tried to reach our target group accordingly. And we also had some public ads. We tried to reach the households through this. We had 2 public ads. In the first one, we focused on the reduction of heating costs, insulation, device selection, public transportation, environment, and efficient driving techniques. It started. What did our uncles do to reduce their heating costs? Insulation. So what is that? A miracle. No. You bought a new fridge. What was it like? It uses less energy. What does that mean? Smart. So you use public transportation. Why? For the nature. You drive your car slower and you don't open the window and AC at the same time. What does that mean? Efficient. What efficiency? Energy efficiency. Yes. If you prefer the efficient one out of the products with the same capacity, you will act smart and live efficiently. In the second public ad, we focused on energy efficiency, device selection, prevention of energy waste, the ideal ambient temperature, and cycling. If it's on your mind, you will be the one who wins. I remember. It's not enough to just buy an energy-efficient fridge. You need to use it efficiently as well. Can you give me the remote? I remember. I also remember to use the AC at the ideal level to not waste energy. Darling, I'm going to the groceries. Darling, I remember not to go to close places with a car as well, for our future and for my own health and for the world as well. Keep energy efficiency in your mind and act smart and live efficiently. So these 2 public ads were broadcast on national TV channels. There were around 200 repetitions, and on the digital platforms, 3,860,000 views were reached. And we also had a drawing contest or painting contest about energy efficiency. We carried out this contest on social media, and we reached 986,000 people. There were 1,500 people attending from 81 provinces, and 28 children were awarded with a bicycle at the end of this contest. And with the infographic videos, we reached over 60,000 people. Yes, dear guests, welcome to our contest. Welcome to the most efficient contest of Turkey. The blue team and the red team, are you ready? We asked 100 people and we are looking for the 5 popular answers. And here's our question. What are the methods of using energy efficiently? Using the white goods in line with their capacity. Well, actually, it is right, isn't it? I mean, if you use the laundry, the washing machine and the dishwasher without filling them up to full capacity, it would be a waste of energy. But unfortunately, it's not one of the popular answers. Mr. Mustafa, what is your answer? Heat insulation. Insulation is the most important thing, Mr. Zeki. Bravo, yes, it really is the most important one. From the roof to the windows, insulation means savings almost by 50%. Congratulations. Now we'll go to the blue table for the remainder of the answers. Yes. So if you answer all the questions right, you will be the most efficient family. There are high energy efficiency class white goods, which I wish we had at our time. That's my answer. Congratulations, Ms. Nezat, and it was the second most popular answer. And it's your turn, Mr. Cengiz. What do you say? Well, Mr. Zeki, back in the day, people worked or studied in candlelight, but the youth nowadays are not aware that they can save from lighting. So I would say high energy saving LED light bulbs. Bravo. So we'll move on with the blue team. So it's the youth's turn. Başak, what do you say? Well, Mr. Zeki, I was preparing for my driving license test with my dad, and I didn't just learn how to drive. I also learned that I needed to be careful about efficiency. So now I try to make sure I don't accelerate my car too much, and I try to not open the window and the AC at the same time. So I'd say efficient driving techniques. Congratulations, Blue Desk. So, Ms. Tulay, your daughter is very conscious about these issues. Yes, she is. She always sets a great example for our family and for her friends. She unplugs everything at home, and she makes sure that she has the AC at 24 degrees in the summer and 22 in the winter. And she doesn't drive unless she has to. She always uses public transportation. That's great, Tulay, but you've almost answered all the questions with this response. Okay, then I would like to invite my son, Ali, from the audience. Okay, then with a round of applause, we invite Ali on stage. Okay, so, Ali, there is one answer your mother didn't give us. Let's see if you can tell us. Of course I can. I think there's an important answer they forgot. Cycling, that's my answer. Cycling is good for our health and for our budget, I believe. Well, let's see if it's the right answer. Bravo. So it seems that for energy efficiency, there is something each family member can do. For that reason, at home, at work, during the commute, do whatever you can and try to save from your budget and your future. Don't forget to efficiently use your energy and act smart, live efficiently. And here we have another part of our communication activity, and here we have our animations. These were communication activities targeting children, and we created a character called the Smart One. And with this character, we focused on equipment use, efficiency techniques, and renewable energies, and we created videos to raise awareness. And I will show you some of these videos. Hi, I am the efficiency acrobat. I am called the Smart One. Ta-da, here I am. I'm fine, don't worry. What was I saying? So because I use my energy smartly, they call me the smart one. Those who are careful with their budget like me a lot. It is very easy to make efficient use of energy. We can start by turning off the devices we are not using. So to keep energy efficiency in your mind, we will be together with you from now on. Don't forget to use your energy efficiently and act smart, live efficiently for bright tomorrows. In this video, this was the initial launch video, and we focused on equipment or device use, and we introduced the Smart One character, and we broadcast this on our social media channels. In the second video, we focused on the ideal ambient temperature, and the Smart One character animates the video again. Why should we sit at such a heat? In the winter, the ideal temperature indoors is 22 degrees, and it's up to you to use your energy efficiently in the winter and in summer. So at home, at school, and during the commute, remember to be efficient. Act smart, live efficiently. And here we wanted to focus on the ideal ambient temperature. And the third video is to prevent energy waste. Why would you leave the fridge door empty? Don't forget, try to close the fridge door as much as possible so you can contribute to your family's budget and the future. Come on. So at home, at school, and during the commute, pursue efficiency, act smart, live efficiently. Together with this, there were around 20 My Smart One videos together with these, and we will continue to broadcast these. When we reached January 2021, there was the Energy Efficiency Week, and in the scope of these activities, we had some 360-degree communication practices. And we had a special broadcast with NTV and Mr. Fatih Dönmez, the Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources, Dr. Oğuzcan, Evcel President, and Ali San Silkum, President of Enver, were part of these TV programs. And there was around a 1-hour-long program about energy efficiency. And again, during the Energy Efficiency Week, we had 360 billboards, 800 rackets, and 10 overpasses in 11 provinces that we used. And we were on various mediums. On Instagram, we had 474 posts. On Facebook, we had 60 posts during the week. And with the use of hashtags in Instagram, there were 500,000 posts that were shared. And we heard the mention of our activities around 1,100,000 times, and there were around 300 videos related to these activities which were shared. And again, our videos and images were shared on digital platforms, and around 130 different governors, local governments, distribution companies, schools, universities, private sector, the provincial directorates of ministries, the Turkish Football Federation at the football games of the 19th week ensured that there was a poster saying, make good passes, score your goal, and use your energy efficiently. And we also had some poster activities. 1,000 of each of these posters were printed. There was a total of 5,000 prints. Some of them were distributed, and some of them are being kept in the storerooms of Evcet to be used in the future. And we also focused on the training of teachers and preparation of a digital booklet for energy efficiency. And on the online platform of the Ministry of National Education, we had the renewable energy and energy efficiency video and digital booklet, which was for the 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. And from Özyeğin University, Professor Pınar Mengüç and the team prepared this. And the concept of energy, energy resources, energy transformation, renewable energy, energy efficiency, climate change, and environmental consciousness were part of the topics. And we had 5 videos with a total duration of 40 minutes. And we also prepared a strategic communication plan, and we wanted to contribute to the communication activities being planned for increasing energy efficiency awareness with this framework. And we focused on general activities, household, industry, transportation, and agriculture. And in preparation of the communication strategy, Haluk Ünal from Paradigma was the leader. And from Kadir Has University, Professor Volkan Ediger and Assistant Professor Eser Sedan were also on the team. And on our website, we created a pool of experts, and we focused on energy efficiency and energy efficiency concepts. And we brought the experts together, and we created a software here, which led to a data bank, which was formed. We also prepared an information booklet, and it was distributed at events and school visits. Some of them have already been handed out, and some are being stored at the Ministry of Energy for use in the future. And finally, we created a coloring book called The Colorful World of the Smart One, and it was printed, and 10,000 copies were printed, and the remainder is at the ministry. Thank you for sparing your time, respectfully.
We would like to thank Mr. Mehmet Aydoğdu for his contributions. And so, with the workshops we held on April 21st and 28th and the forum we have completed with you here today, we are happy to have finished our series of activities in which the outputs of the projects in the field of energy efficiency, battery storage, and data management and digitalization in the energy sector were introduced within the scope of all of the Phase 2 program. Also, information regarding global developments in the fields explored by the projects were shared. We hope that in addition to increasing the visibility of Phase 2 projects, we have enabled the sharing of efficient and useful information for participants through these activities. We hope to get together with you again at the Phase 3 and Phase 4 programs, which will continue in collaboration with the EU and the World Bank. You can access the video recordings of the events and the detailed information about the speakers through the event program on the digital platform and the www.enerjietkinlikleri.org website. The recordings of all our events will be available on the digital platform until May 29, 2021. We would like to thank our esteemed speakers, distinguished guests, and you, our dear participants, for your patience and the interest you have taken in our event. We hope to see you again in our future events. Goodbye.